Long after midnight's last bell, Eddard Stark lay on the rough-hewn bench of his black cell, listening to the restless breathing of the castle stone. Damp seeped through iron bands, curling about his joints like invisible serpents. He had thought the dungeons beneath the Red Keep would echo with screams, yet silence ruled here, broken only by distant drip-drip water and the shiver of chains stirred by spectral draughts. In that hush, he counted the heartbeats he imagined still pulsed in Winterfell's Godswood, beat for beat with his own, as though distance were a mere fancy. He pictured the ancient heart tree, snow-white bark gleaming under northern moonlight, and tried to feel its watchful presence. But King's Landing's heat had chased the scent of pine from his memory, leaving behind only torch smoke and ash. When he closed his eyes, his daughters' faces flickered. Sansa's terrified curtsy upon the dais, Arya's wildfire gaze as she vanished amid the crowd, and each vision pressed on him the truth of dawn. At first light, he would kneel before an executioner's sword, nameless, dishonored, undone. Keys rattled. He sat up, every battered muscle bracing. Footsteps approached. Soft, measured, more whisper than footfall. Lantern light spilled through the bars, revealing a bald man in parchment-colored robes. The torch behind him turned his silhouette into a flame-hollowed shadow, yet the voice was unmistakable, syrupy, deliberate, weary. "Lord Stark," Varys murmured, drawing the title out like a secret. "The night grows late, and so does the realm's patience for folly." He glanced down the corridor. No guards in sight. "I have come to open a door you thought forever shut." Ned stared, wary. "And what price does the spider weave into his web tonight?" "The same price you always paid, my lord. Your steadfast love for your children." Varys slid a thin brass pick into the rusted lock. A muffled click answered him. Hinges sighed. He stepped into the cell and pressed a water flask into Ned's hands. "Drink. You have a long walk ahead and parched men stumble." Ned drank, the water tasting of tin and freedom, then wiped his mouth with the back of a trembling hand. "I will not trade honor for life. I have already confessed crimes I never committed to spare Sansa and Arya. What more can I yield?" "No, not your honor," Varys whispered. "Only your presence in the game yet to be played." Stannis sails, Renly gathers banners, Lannisters tighten claws. The realm teeters. It needs quiet hands to steady it. He leaned close. Ned smelled myrrh and old dust upon him. "Escape with me now. Support the heir who carries Robert's true blood. And perhaps we rescue your girls along the way. Honor. Duty." The words braided like iron into Ned's soul. But between their strands he saw a darker thread. The thin wine-pink scar on Sansa's wrist, where she had fallen from Lady's saddle as a child. Arya's gap-toothed grin when Jon gave her needle. They lived because he yielded once already. If he died at dawn, what hope remained for them? He set down the flask. "Very well. Lead on." Chains fell away. Varys drew a dun cloak from beneath his robes and draped it over Ned's shoulders. "We move through forgotten corridors, older than Maker's cruelty." He raised the lantern and nodded. "Your northern eyes must grow used to blackness again." They slipped into a wall's shadow, then into another, traversing a labyrinth of passages carved when dragons still ruled the sky. Torchlight bounced from damp stone, stirring dust motes like dim stars. Ned followed, silent, though each step yanked wounds awake, broken ribs from Lannister fists, a bruised thigh where Ser Boros' boot had landed. He endured. Northmen were forged to outlast blizzards. He would outlast this. At a fork, the air turned colder. Varys paused before a narrow crawl space veiled by spider-webbed cobwebs. Through here. He blew on them. Threads scattered. The crawl space forced Ned to crouch, the ceiling scraping his shoulders. He wondered who first dug these burrows. Runaways, builders, dreamers. Perhaps some dragonless Targaryen prince had sought solace in hidden dark. His breath misted as they emerged into a vault, lit by a single guttering candle. The flame revealed racks of musty robes and jars, labeled in an incomprehensible hand. An old man hunched over a worktable, grinding something that smelled of crushed poppies. "Maester Qyburn," Varys greeted softly. Our guest requires your tonic. Qyburn's pale eyes found Ned. A swallow of this will dull the pain without fogging the mind. He poured viscous amber into a clay cup. Ned drank. Bitterness spread across his tongue. Then mellow warmth seeped through bruised limbs. He flexed his fingers. Pain still lived there, but quieter, as though respect after counsel. Qyburn produced shears. Hair, Varys instructed. Beard too. Ned stiffened but allowed it. Snow-dark locks tumbling to the stone. He watched them fall, like pieces of Eddard Stark he might never reclaim. When Qyburn finished, Ned scarcely recognized the gaunt stable hand in the cracked mirror. Cropped hair, stubble shadow, hollows beneath eyes that once glinted ice gray, now storm clouds smudged. The mirror could not show the fresh ember inside his chest. Resolve born of fathers who rise again. They pressed on. An oval door of greenish bronze swung open at Varys' touch, revealing stairs that descended into deeper dark. Far below, Ned heard the Blackwater River murmuring, tide slapping stone. They emerged behind a screen of reeds at water's edge. Moonlight silvered the river, and across the glinting surface, small fishing boats bobbed like beetles. Beneath a rotting pier waited a skiff manned by two boys, faces painted with charcoal and lime. Little birds, Varys whispered. They know only that they ferry grain for a baker too generous to count his loaves. The skiff rocked as Ned stepped in. They pushed off, paddles kissing the river without a splash. King's Landing rose behind them, a silhouette of towers and spires against bruised clouds. Ned felt its gaze upon his back, as though stone gargoyles would shriek alarm. Yet, no horns sounded. He tasted salt and river muck on the night breeze. Each breath widened the distance between him and hedge-basked spikes atop the city's walls. Midstream, lanterns swayed along the docks of the Lion's Gate, guards patrolling. The boys dipped paddles slower, hugging a barge's shadow. Ned gripped the boat's rim, knuckles whitening. In Winterfell he would have embraced open ice lakes, but city waters smelled of rot, of secrets drowned. When the barge drifted past and the lanterns dwindled, they angled across to the southern bank where warehouses slept amid scorched brick. Here the stench of fish guts surrendered to sweet hay. Granaries lined dim alleys. Varys led Ned beneath a sagging arch into a storeroom stacked with empty crates. A woman emerged from darkness, bearing a single taper. Her dress marked her a matron of Chatelain's past, but her eyes were keen. "Nhagan," Varys greeted her. A room above, as promised. Third floor, eastern gable. She peered at Ned with curiosity, then slipped away. Varys guided him up a narrow stair. Floorboards moaning. In the garret they found a straw pallet, basin, and small shuttered window overlooking the alleys of Flea Bottom. Only then did Varys speak again. "Rest, my lord. Before sunrise we must whisper ourselves into rumor." Ned sank onto the pallet, every bruise finding straw with complaint. He stared at the low beams. Sleep crept like a thief, but carried knives of guilt. He had fled, yes, yet walked straight into deeper hazard. Sansa still prisoner within red walls. Arya lost to the city's labyrinth. He closed his eyes and imagined rogue stars darting across an inka-dark sky. Patterns Arya might draw with a stick if she were stargazing atop Winterfell's battlements. "Please," he prayed to gods both new and old, "guard my girls until I return." He woke at dawn to rain-pelting roof slats. Varys sat beside a tin brazier, mending a tear in Ned's borrowed cloak with thread fine as spider silk. "Storm's blessing," the eunuch murmured. "Rain dulls dog scent and blurs footprints." Ned rose, joints stiff. "What news?" "A riot in the fish market. Bread short, tempers long. The gold cloaks muster to restore order, which means fewer eyes here." Varys finished his stitch, bit the thread, handed over the cloak. "First, we secure coin, arms, and a road out. Second, we find allies who survive on whispers, not banners. Third, we plan the Lion's undoing." "Not Stannis first?" Ned asked, draping the cloak across shoulders, still learning their new shape. "Stannis will not wait to be found. He spreads truth of bastardy as wildfire." but musters on Dragonstone. Days away. You and I must survive those days inside a city ruled by wolves in lion skins. Varys' mouth curved, humorless. Trust me, it is harder than beheading a king. They descended to the storeroom. Megan awaited with crusts, cheese, and brown ale. Ned thanked her, meaning it. Such courtesies grounded him. As he ate, Varys described a masquerade. Ned would become Jorah Stone, a sellsword lame in one leg from the Greyjoy Rebellion, hired to guard a merchant caravan bound north. The merchant, one Belicho Painemion, wealthy, discreet, indebted to spiders, planned to depart at week's end. In 5 days, Varys said. Jorah Stone rides through the Riverlands toward River Run, where Catelyn Stark's kin still sharpen claws. He steepled fingers. But within those 5 days, you and I rescue Sansa and discover Arya's trail. Elsewise, what father dares ride? Ned nodded, heart aching at Catelyn's name. He swallowed the last of the ale, tasting River Run's rivers in memory. Show me what task begins this morning. They changed into common garb, coarse and blotched with mud. Varys plucked lice from a ragged cap, then placed it upon Ned's head. Together they slipped into Flea Bottom's maze, rain turning alleys into rivulets. Smells of offal, wet wool, and soot mingled. No one spared them a glance. Misery wore every face. At a tanner's yard, they ducked through a soot-stained door. Inside waited a smuggler with teeth of yellow ivory and a ledger crammed with false seals. Ned signed the manifest of Belicho's caravan under Jorah Stone's name, his hand steady, the discipline of long winters spent balancing Winterfell's accounts. In return he received a pouch of silver stags, a short arming sword in a greasy scabbard, and forged travel papers. The smuggler kissed Varys' ring and vanished into shadow. Back in the rain-washed alley, Ned drew the sword an inch. Poor steel, but balance true enough. He remembered the feel of ice, the great sword lost to Ilyn Payne's thirst for spectacle, and grief threatened. He sheathed the blade with care, reminding himself, even poor steel can defend a daughter. They proceeded toward Street of Silk. Rain slackened, leaving gutters steaming. Varys gestured to a narrow building whose shutters bore painted lilies. Within, a friend keeps safer ledgers than that we just fought. He tapped the door twice low, once high. A spy hole opened. After a breath, the door creaked. They entered dim corridors, perfumed by incense and secrets. At a small chamber, Varys exchanged curt phrases with a man of indeterminate age, his face half wallowed by a scar. Ned noted shelves of candles snuffed save one. The man produced a roll of parchment. Floor plans of the Red Keep drawn with obsessive precision. Varys' fingertip traced corridors leading from the Maiden Vault to the Tower of the Hand. Sansa is quartered here, under Septa Watch. The Queen's guards rotate thrice daily. We need a fourth shift, he said, eyes glinting at Ned. One devised by us. Ned studied the map, mind sharpening like frost across iron. These walls are thick. Only 2 windows, both 60 feet above the embankment. Stairwell runs adjacent to the kitchen smoke flue. He looked up. Smoke may mask a descent. Varys smiled thinly. I knew your mind would quicken once chains fell away. When they departed, drizzle had ceased. Noon sun burned through shreds of cloud, turning puddles into mirrors where rag-cloaked beggars admired nothing but their refusal to drown. Ned felt heat on his shorn scalp and thought of Bran, still crippled or dead. News scarce since his captors silenced ravens. Each worry pressed like another chain. Yet he moved with purpose now, following Varys across a marketplace, bursting with quarrels over spoiled grain. A heavy-set gold cloak blocked their path, barking orders at vendors. Varys knelt to tighten the lace of his slipper, murmuring, "Walk on, slow, let riot's glare blind him." Ned limped, adopting the sellsword's feigned injury. Shouts erupted behind as a cart of eels overturned. The guard cursed and waded into chaos. They slipped free. By dusk, they reached the garret. Megan had prepared barley stew. Varys ate sparingly, then departed to pluck silk threads. Ned remained, staring out the small window where the city's lights flickered like faraway hearth fires. One spark more vibrant than the rest flared near the sept of Baelor. Torches, perhaps. He imagined what songs bards would spin if they knew the hand of the king now hid amid whorehouse rafters. He almost laughed, but the sound caught like a blade in his throat. Sleep visited in fragments. He dreamed of Lyanna's bed of blood, of promises he whispered while tearing petals from a crown of winter roses. He woke sweating, the dream already sliding away, leaving only the words of his promise. I will protect them. For a heartbeat, he wasn't sure if he meant children or kingdoms. On the third night, Varys returned at moonrise. He carried a small bundle, a scrap of blue silk embroidered with a direwolf beneath a crown. Ned snatched it. Arya. A rumor only. Varys sat, unused fatigue heavy under his eyes. A girl with a northern look was seen wielding a broom shaft, like a sword near Tabo Mott's forge. She escaped a guard by diving headlong into the butcher's pens. Brave, reckless. Does it sound like your area? He sighed. But I cannot chase shadows tonight. We have a window tomorrow to reach Sansa.I. One of my little birds will serve as sentry maiden, leaving her post to deliver wine to the queen. During that gap, our lioness reloads claws elsewhere, and the septa replaces her novices. We must be inside the corridor then. 1. Ned's pulse thumped. Show me the path. On the floor they unfurled the map again. Torchlight danced across inked angles. Ned traced each turn with calloused finger, memorizing. Down the cliffside sewer to the tortury, up a spiral seldom patrolled, through a disused gallery filled with Moth-Eaten tapestries, then into the Maiden Vault's rear passage. Varys detailed guard names: Sir Rathan, Sir Lamy of Hayford, good men bribed with golden lies. Ned considered weaknesses. How quickly they drained goblets, which boasted about women and which about war. Soldiers were predictable. Ned had commanded them all his life. When the candle guttered, they wrapped themselves in silence. Just two exiles of different courts, who found common ground in fear for innocence. Ned felt closer to Varys in that hush than to many lords who toasted him during Robert's reign. Not trust, never that, but understanding. Before dawn they armed. Ned belted the cheap sword, slid a dagger into his boot, and smeared grime across his jaw to dull the northern pallor. Varys applied a false mustache and donned the garb of a debtored scribe. When they quit the garret, the city felt poised on a sharp breath. Even the gutter snipes hushed as though gossip itself had drawn cover. They reached the sewer grate behind the Guildhall of Sailors. Rusty bars surrendered to Varys' key. A rank gush of odors welcomed them. Ned descended first, boots splashing. The ceiling pressed low. Lantern flame quivered, sickly pale. They plodded against slow current until stairs rose before them. Ned climbed, shoulders brushing slime-coated stone. At the top, a wooden hatch waited. Varys cracked it a finger width. Above, a bakery cellar empty save for flour sacks. They slipped through, dusting off clinging filth. From cellar to alley to disused tunnel, they threaded King's Landing's second skin. The city above stirred. Vendors calling wares, bells of the great sept tolling prime. Sound pressed through stone, distant yet urgent, as though the city urged them on. Spiral stairs corkscrewed upward, centuries of soot clinging like midnight moss. Ned's lungs burned by the time they emerged into the tapestry gallery. Cobwebs draped faded hunts and ruined tourneys. He paused beside a tattered depiction of Aegon the Conqueror astride Balerion, wondering if dragons still breathed mythic heat into these stones. Varys touched his elbow. Time? Closer now to the Maiden Vault. Ned felt the presence of Lannister guards even before he saw them, like the musk of a predator at the edge of snow. They approached an alcove overlooking the corridor. Through an arch, he glimpsed gold-plated helms. Varys' breath feathered his ear. Wait for the goblet to tilt. A septa in simple gray walked by, carrying 2 copper pitchers. The guards turned, jesting. One accepted a cupful, another reached for more. Varys nudged Ned. He stepped into the corridor, shoulders squared, limping as Joran would. Message for the queen, he growled, adopting a gravelly Dornish lilt. The nearest guard tilted his head. Before questions formed, Varys glided forward, face blank but eyes alight. "The queen summons her new handmaids," he intoned. Guards exchanged puzzled glances. Their cups touched lips once more. A heartbeat later, lids drooped, wine laced by birds. They slumped to knees, helms clanging stone. Ned caught the lighter guard, easing him down. He met Varys' gaze. "Go." They pushed through an oaken door into a small antechamber fragrant with lavender. Another door beyond it, lighter, cracked open. Inside that room sat Sansa Stark on a window bench, sunlit hair unbraided, face pale as the moon. A Septa dozed in a chair nearby, snoring softly. Ned crossed the threshold in 3 strides, knees nearly giving. "Sansa," he breathed. She turned, disbelief rippling across tear-stained cheeks, and for a moment time froze. Father and child reunited where they ought never meet again. He knelt, gathered her into arms that trembled. Sansa clutched him as though he were wind come alive. "Father, they said you would." She choked. Ned pressed her head against his shoulder. "I escaped that fate with help. We go home, sweetling." Varys closed the door, silent as dusk. "We must hasten. I dare not hold this corridor long." They roused the Septa with a cloth soaked in poppy wine. She would sleep an hour. Varys produced a plain cloak and hood. Sansa donned them. Tears dried, jaw clenched. She was nobler than her 12 years should allow. Back through passageways they retraced steps, burden now tripled. Sansa's safety, Ned's secret, Varys' schemes. In the sewer, darkness, Sansa barely whimpered at the stench, determined as any cub of the north. At the granary, Garrett and Hagen embraced her tenderly, promising broth and quiet. Only once Sansa slept on the pallet did Ned confront Varys. "Now my eldest is out, Arya still lost, yet Cersei will soon know of Sansa's flight. We cannot linger. Nor can we flee blind," Varys replied. "Information is a sword finer than Valyrian steel. I will find the wolf girl while you prepare the caravan. We depart the instant I have her." He glanced at Ned, mild dread haunting his eyes. "Or the instant hope is spent." Ned folded arms across chest that yearned to break. "Hope is winter's harvest. We live upon it until spring." That night, he sharpened the cheap sword on a whetstone borrowed from Megan's pantry, each rasping stroke echoing vows to the godswood of Winterfell. He pictured Jon Snow atop the wall, Robb among wolf banners, Catelyn standing watch across River Run's battlements. Hearts far apart, yet beating toward one purpose. Family preserved against the world's hungers. Sparks leapt from iron and vanished into darkness, small and bright and stubborn. So began the long night before escape, when every ticking moment might unravel all. Yet within a garret above the poorest street of a city ruled by greed, a Stark, a spider, and a sleeping cub forged a fragile alliance. Outside, thunder rolled across Blackwater Bay, heralding storms yet to break, and within that rumble, Ned heard the distant howl of a direwolf, carried south by winds, determined to see a northern heart returned home. Rain lingered for 3 days, a steady silver veil pulled across King's Landing, until every alley smelled of wet ash and bruised fruit. In the garret, Ned counted the drops that slipped through a warped slate overhead, letting the soft percussion lull Sansa back to sleep when nightmares woke her. Sometimes she thrashed against blankets, convinced that Sir Ilyn's masked face loomed above her again. Sword raised, but Ned's whisper, "Little dove, you are safe," brought her gasping into the present. She would cling to him, heartbeat skittering like a frightened bird's, and he would rock her gently while outside the city muttered its endless unrest. By the 4th sunrise, Sansa had begun helping Megan grind chickpeas for thin porridge. Fingers stained ochre by the mortar's dust, each small task a stitch weaving her into the rough fabric of their hiding place. Ned watched, equal measures pride and sorrow filling the space behind his ribs. Pride that she adapted like a true wolf. Sorrow that she must learn such skills so young. Varys returned near dusk, cloak sagging with rainwater, eyes rimmed in scarlet fatigue, yet glittering beneath the drift of candle scent clinging to him. He unfolded a damp scrap of kiddick skin upon the rickety table, smoothing it flat with elegant fingers. On its wrinkled surface, a child's face had been sketched in quick charcoal strokes. Sharp jaw, wild hair, fierce narrow eyes under a smudge of soot. Sansa sucked in breath, recognizing her sister even through the crude art. Ned studied the notes scribbled around the margins. Found near the dragon pit, brandished wooden sword, vanished toward the hook, last sighting midday. Your sister eludes even my little birds, Varys explained quietly. They admire her cunning almost as much as I fear it. You cannot imagine how swiftly an arrow of misinterpretation can fly in these streets. One rumor claims she is a stable thief, another that she spies for Stannis. Both false, but dangerous falsities. Nebali Nico. Hawag. Sansa reached to trace the sketch, voice no louder than the raindrops. Arya always said no cage could hold her, not even one made of gold. She looked to her father, speaking braver words than she felt. She will find us. Ned folded the scrap and tucked it into his jerkin. And we will shorten her journey. What new path have you uncovered? A flicker only, Varys admitted, removing his sodden cloak. A night soil boy swears he glimpsed a ragged little wolf thing climbing the lime kilns by the Blackwater Rush just before curfew. She carried a pigeon under her tunic and argued with herself about giving it a name before roasting it. His lips curved faintly. That sounds like a Stark to me. We go tonight, Ned answered before a thought could warn him. The kilns lie beyond the Mudgate. I know that stretch, foul wind or no. Varys lifted a placating hand. We shall, but not rashly. The city's watch doubles now that the Queen's jewel has slipped her chain. If we stride out as two men and a noble girl, gold cloaks sniff out blood. His gaze shifted to Sansa, who straightened. I have acquired passes for the Sisters of Mercy, a holy order permitted to gather orphans from the dockfront and ferry them to the Septry at Whispering Sound. Gray cloaks, head cowls, faces vanish behind saintly pretense. He addressed Sansa directly. Would you bear a novice's lamp, my lady? The Queen's men rarely question pious charity. Sansa swallowed, nodding. If it brings Arya home. That evening, under a moon veiled by smoke, they departed the granary garret, disguised in sober wool. Varys led, stooped beneath a hood embroidered with the lover's knot. Ned followed, pretending to shuffle with a copy of the 70-pointed star clasped to his chest. Sansa carried a tarnished lantern, its little flame trembling like her own resolve. They moved through Flea Bottom, where half the stalls still smoldered from bread riots. Charred wood lay in black ribs across the mud, and hungry ghosts of loaves scented the air. Some small folk knelt for blessings as they passed, mistaking them for true holy folk. Varys murmured rote absolutions, dulcet and convincing, as Ned's northern heart tightened at the sight of angry bellies and scabby children with eyes too old. Rain ceased, but left the night slick. By the time they approached the Mudgate, the moon had risen higher, round and pale as a blind eye. Torches snapped above the arch. Wet hemp smoke drifted down like sour incense. A captain with rust-flecked pauldrons stepped before them, lantern raised. Sisters travel late, he grunted. Varys bowed. The stranger knows no clock, good sir. Fever takes a tannery household tonight. We carry balm of hyssop. ... Nandai. The captain's gaze drifted to Sansa's lowered head, the lantern she held. And the girl? A novice vowed yesterday at Visenya's Hill. She seeks to temper courage with service. Steel scraped leather. Ned's hand shifted nearer his belt. But the captain merely used the tip of his sword to lift Sansa's chin. Candle glow revealed eyes damp with rehearsed piety. Whether he read sorrow or innocence in them, something softened in him. He sheathed the blade. Be quick about God's work, he signaled. The portcullis groaned upward. They entered the shantytown skirting the river. Here kilns stood like monstrous beehives, their chimneys vomiting sulphurous smoke even in darkness as limeworkers tended cauldrons slaking hot stone. Sparks brightened the muddy ground, illuminating drunken laborers sprawled under burlap awnings, some coughing red from quicklime dust. Sansa wrinkled her nose but did not falter. Varys guided them behind a derelict tannery where the stench of urine and hides masked any human scent. A rickety ladder ascended the kiln's outer shell. Our urchin claimed, she climbed here, he whispered. If Arya scouted roosts for roosting birds, From that crown she could see docks, sept, and the red keep spires, a map for a fugitive. Ned scaled first, cautious of slick rungs. Atop the kiln, heat pulsed through soles, and ash eddied like gray moths in the wind. He crouched, surveying rooftops strewn like broken tiles across a dirty soup. Lanterns afloat on the black water glittered. Beyond them, black pressed all horizons. He whispered Arya's name inside his skull until it thrummed with longing. A faint hiss. Then a pebble skipped near his boot. He turned. From the lip of the adjacent kiln, a small figure emerged, balancing on hands and bare feet, hair tangled as river reed, eyes reflecting kiln fires. A pigeon hung limp from a crude loop at her belt. Ned's throat closed. Arya died. She froze, every sinew taut, then somehow recognized his shape even through the unfamiliar cropped hair and sister's robes. Father? Her whisper cracked. She darted along the arch, nimble as a cat across beams, and flung herself into his arms. He staggered under the sudden fierce weight, choking on emotion too wide for words. She smelled of ash and feathers. Below, Sansa's lantern glow flickered up the ladder as she climbed. Arya swiveled, saw her sister, and for a heartbeat suspicion tightened her face. Then relief crashed through her like a wave. Sansa. She leapt down the rungs, 3 at a time, nearly knocking Sansa backward into Varys' waiting arms. The sisters tangled together, sobbing and laughing, pressing foreheads as if to prove bone and blood. Ned descended, heart pounding new cadence. They are together. The world may yet mend. Varys watched, expression unreadable save for a softness about the mouth. A family reckoned, even so briefly, is balm the realm seldom knows. He murmured. Their reunion could last only breaths. Shouts drifted from the mudgate. A horn brayed thrice. Alarm. Varys stiffened. The captain counted 3 sisters. If his tally fails on patrol, he'll question memory. We move, now. He led them between kilns toward a spillway where half a collapsed stairs plunged underground, once a smuggler's culvert before the hand's tourney. Moist darkness swallowed them. Ned felt along mossy walls until the passage broadened into an old storm pipe. Sansa and Arya clutched one another, their steps dissonant. One groomed to dance, the other born to sprint. And yet their silhouettes fused like twin shadows merging in single torchlight. They reached a sally port barred by crusted iron. Varys produced a square key of antler, twisting until rust screamed. Moonlight greeted them in an overgrown garden beyond the walls, a strip of neglected king's land where once exotic peppers grew for a Targaryen prince. Now weeds reigned. Ned inhaled damp loam, the scent almost northern in its quiet honesty. They wove among bramble to a cobbled-back lane where a single wagon waited under linen tarps. Belicho Paenemian's convoy. 2 draft horses stamped, harness bells muffled by twists of wool. A squat man with rings on each finger emerged from beneath the tarp's edge, lantern hooded against watchers. He squinted at the Starks, then at Varys. I prayed your brood would shrink, not swell, he hissed in Lysine accent. 3 fugitives, double risk. Spare me your ledgers, Varys replied silkily. The crown owes you thrice what this delivery earns. Escort these innocents north, and vows all round are kept. Bain can. Belicho spat. Innocents with lion's bounty upon their necks. 100 dragons each, the criers say. Ned stepped forward, letting his shawl fall enough for moonlight to touch the stark line of his face. Double that when they are safe across Bitterbridge. The North remembers its debts. His voice, edged with Winterfell frost, carved hesitation into the merchant. Belicho assessed the broad shoulders, the iron promise at his hip, and grudging respect sparked. Very well, he muttered, but I want no howling direwolves if gold cloaks pry. Varys cupped the merchant's elbow, steering him to adjust harness straps, fussing to keep him close while whispers were traded. Ned took the moment to lift Arya onto the wagon's rear platform. Sansa climbed beside her, cloak hoods drawn low. Inside, crates of Sumner spices, masked hollow chambers built for contraband. The girls slid into one such cavity lined with sackcloth. Ned knelt at the opening. You will hear little but wheel creak and horse breath. Bear it for a while longer. No, Nod. Arya touched Needle's hilt. A blade Yoren had returned to her earlier that day, telling her to keep it hidden until they cleared the city. Now she tucked it against her spine. "I was coming to find you anyway," she whispered with brave nonchalance. Then, smaller, "Don't let them take you again." Sansa gripped her father's fingers. "Bran wakes, Mother waits, Robb gathers armies. We must be whole again." Ned kissed her brow. "We will be. Remember your wolf's heart." He sealed the crate, heart fissuring at every wooden slat. The convoy rumbled into motion as Predon Grey lifted along rooftops. Ned and Varys rode behind the first wagon dressed as drovers, reins loose in calloused hands. Bellichos hired guards, 3 Illyrian sellswords in patched brigandines. Rode flank, eyes like molten coin. The Mudgate captain from earlier leaned out his watchtower, blinking at the passing convoy, but recognized the merchant seal pressed into beeswax on travel rolls. Ned held his breath. The captain saluted disinterestedly and turned away. Wheels clattered over drawbridge chains, and the Blackwater's tarry breath rolled up to meet them, cool against the sweat on Ned's neck. They were outside the walls, yet freedom stretched tenuous as spider silk. The caravan halted at a levee post to pay steward's tax. While Bellicho bargained, Varys dismounted, speaking low. "Our next peril is the Roserad toll at Bitterbridge. Queen's men patrol each mile for rumor of northern wraiths. We require misdirection." He produced 3 raven feather quills dyed red, handing them to Ned. "Drop these at intervals. Lannister spies will follow a trail, leading them toward Duskendale, believing the red quills mark Stark flight. South we ride, but our decoy points east. Vendem Tristan." Ned pocketed them, studying Varys under dim lantern sway. "Spider, what web do you spin when we reach safety? The girls and I ride north. You return to your nest." "My place is amid whispers," Varys answered, mounting again. "Yet know this, I do not stand beneath any sigil save the realm. Should your boy Robb's war tip toward chaos, my web may anchor his cause." "My boy's cause is justice," Ned said. But inside he wondered how many innocents the north might burn in Wolf's fury. They traveled through marsh flats woven with fog that morning, wheels leaving mirrored impressions in waterlogged soil. Herons lifted like scraps of parchment from reedy banks. Ned rode in silence, rehearsing letters he would send when quills, ink, and ravens could be trusted again. To Catelyn, to Robb, to Stannis perhaps, telling truths only hardened steel could back. In the crate, the girls whispered home and ghost stories, low so as not to alert the guards. At noon, Arya pried a slat aside enough to peer. She watched farmlands pass, hayricks molded like stooped grandmothers, fields of beans drooping from excess rain. She muttered counts of crows on fence posts, a game Bran used to play. By late afternoon the road braided into a bustling artery of traffic, bound for Bitterbridge Fair. Jugglers marched beside orange pennants, sellswords escorted silk merchants, a wagon of summer islanders sang bawdy hymns while native gourds thumped like drums. Such congestion pleased Varys. A single wolf hides easier in a pack. Yet Bellicho fretted over pace and profit. He cracked his whip at draft horses until Ned's jaw clenched. Even after years at court, cruelty to beasts still needled him deeper than insults thrown across council tables. They camped that night along the fringe of a meadow where torches of countless travelers flickered like a constellation fallen to earth. Sansa and Arya were freed from their crate once curtains of linen obscured them. Ned insisted they stretch limbs. Arya practiced needle forms behind a thicket, stabbing at keening crickets, while Sansa hung damp cloak near the cookfire and learned to salt Bellicho's thin stew so it almost tasted northern. Under stars lost beyond city smoke, they felt a breath closer to home. Varys joined Ned at the fire's edge. "Littlefinger returned to court today," he said, voice low. "Whispers claim he proposes a new city bank to cover the coin offered for your head. One cannot fail to admire his industry." Ned sniffed. "A man who plants gardens only he may harvest." He fed a stick to the flames. "If he seeks my head, he'll find it guarded by more than paper dragons." "In time," Varys murmured, eyes reflecting flame. "News from Dragonstone also. Stannis dispatches ravens, naming Joffrey a bastard born of Twincest. Storms End rallies banners. Your truth spills across seas you never sailed. Ned stared into sparks. Each truth loosed into the world produced rings upon rings, who measured where they broke or merged. Honor once seemed straight as Mance Rayder's horn, but now honor meant shadows and lies to shield children. He wondered whether Brandon and Lyanna would judge him lesser or wiser. Dawn saw the convoy merge with a merchant train heavy with Dornish wines. Bellicho arranged to ride amid them. A flood of casks helped mask any search, for guards seldom risked spiking royal tariffs on goods beloved by Queen Cersei. Yet news of the bounty preceded them. Along the Roserwad roadside talk buzzed: hand of the king turned traitor, stolen daughters, chilled murder at Beller's Sept. Minstrels strummed lurid verse as though events had happened in some mythic yesterage. Arya listened through cracks in the crate, eyes blazing. They turned everything upside down, she whispered. Soon they'll sing, I fed Sansa to shadows. Sansa placed a calming palm over Arya's fist. We know the truth, she said softly, but her own mouth trembled. Mid-morning, at a crossroads enveloped by willow stands. A column of crimson broke from trees. Lannister outriders, mantled in scale, twin lion banners slicing the mist. Bellicho cursed. Ned glimpsed 20 men, perhaps more deeper in brush. The merchant train slowed. Teamsters murmured prayers. Varys slid beside Ned in the driver's box. Our decoy must perform, he said. Cast a red quill while their eyes scanned bold as hawks. Ned unwrapped one bright feather, dyed such a blood hue that even mud could not swallow it. As the convoy edged forward, he let it fall, the breeze catching it so it spiraled toward the left-hand brush. A young outrider spied it, raised a leather horn, and blew 2 sharp notes. 5 riders peeled off, galloping east where wagon ruts and hoofprints from earlier rainfall had carved deceptive tracks. The company's main body trotted straight for the convoy. Sir Adam Marbrand himself led, copper hair gleaming in early sun. He called a halt, eyes flicking from casks of wine to spice crates. Grand day for commerce, he said, voice courteous but sword ready. We search for a certain wolf pack rumored south. Mind if my men sniff? Bellicho plastered a genial smile that barely split his beard. Spice is my only contraband, sir. Smell all you please, but pay if you taste. Laughter rose nervous among nearby drovers. Marbrand gestured. Soldiers hopped from saddles, prying at crates. One approached the spice wagon containing the Starks. Ned tightened grip on reins. Inside, Arya pressed hand over Sansa's mouth, steadying their breath until hearts seemed louder than hoofbeats. The soldier probed a barrel of peppercorn with spear, sneezing as plume of spice puffed. He shoved at the crate's lid. Bellicho hurried over, complaining of fragile goods and lost profit. While he harangued the soldier, Varys flicked his fingers toward the ground. A second red quill. It landed mere inches from Marbrand's mount. The horse danced. Marbrand steadied it, eyes narrowing on the feather. He stooped, plucked it, examined a strange die. A scout galloped back from the east flank, shouting of scarlet feathers marking northbound scouts. Marbrand scowled, tossed the quill aside. Search quick and ride, he ordered. Books would claim later that cunning alone spared the Starks, but Ned knew fortune favored them by a thread. The soldiers' sweep lasted minutes. Not one pried loose the false bottom above the girls. As the outriders thundered away, Sansa exhaled tears. Arya knuckled triumph into her sleeve, and Ned felt a decade lift from his shoulders. For 2 more days they traveled unmolested, feeding decoy quills alongside roads. Storm clouds massed over Bitterbridge, but fair banners still flew, pinks and yellows bright against black sky. As though color itself dared rebuke impending tempest, the fair's bustle spilled beyond walls. Wooden pens bristled with goats, braziers crackled under venison skewers, and jugglers tossed swords while barefoot girls dangled hawks upon wrists tattooed with fake moons. The caravan merged with Q at the eastern toll. Ned heard talk. King Renly camped near Highgarden with a host of Reach lords, banners blooming like orchards. Some said Renly would claim crown by beauty alone. Others whispered of Roche-scented alliances with the Tyrells. The first gate search proved cursory, too many wagons to inspect thoroughly. Yet Belicho feared repeated passes inside. He arranged lodging in a barn at the edge of fairgrounds, paying extra for privacy. That night, rain finally broke, drums of thunder shaking rafters. Ned unsealed the crate. The sisters emerged blinking, cheeks hollow from stifled air yet spirits shining. They moved to a hayloft where fireflies shuddered along beams. Arya pirouetted with imaginary opponents, hay motes swirling like embers around her blade. Sansa sat cross-legged mending a tear in Ned's cloak with neat stitches taught by her late septa. Varys brewed willow bark tea over a shield pan fire, its mellow spice fighting barn odors. Belicho outside argued with stablemaster about rats, stamping until hooves echoed. Wind whooshed through cracks, rattling harnesses. Ned watched his daughters, aware of how close memory clung. Arya practicing under Winterfell's sunny courtyard, Sansa reciting stitches while old Nan muttered ghost tales. Yet he also saw how prison, flight, and fear had tempered them. Arya's step bore sharper purpose. Sansa's hands no longer trembled at mention of swords. The children he left in King's Landing were gone. In their place stood young wolves finding voices in storm's roar. After tea, Varys unrolled a child's map of the Reach. "We part here," he said quietly. "My path bends east toward the gullet of political despair. The fisher folk of Blackwater Bay still chirp secrets I must net." He faced Ned. "Carry them north through the Kingswood Road, avoiding the Rosewood Ow's heart. Then cut west past Shattered Stone and cross Mander at Longtable, where the Lord Merryweather yet recalls Catelyn's courtesy on Robert's progress. Beyond that, country grows thorny for Lannister claws." Ned nodded slowly. "You will be hunted when you're hand in our flight surfaces." "I always am," Varys replied with twinkle dark as old wine. "Yet spiders molt, each skin left behind misleads heedless pursuers." He reached into voluminous sleeve, withdrew a palm-sized wooden token, carved with a crescent moon, set in 7-pointed star. "Show this to any septon along the Trident. They will grant bread and safe floor." He pressed it into Sansa's hand. "Piety's a passport few guards question." To Arya he gave a thin glass vial. "A single dram of widow's mercy. Use it only to shrink a throat that would otherwise roar alarm." Arya weighed it, eyes grave. She slid it into her boot sheath beside Needle, understanding without shaking. Ned gripped the eunuch's wrist. "I doubted your motives when we met in my cell, and still I do. But I will remember this night." Varys touched Ned's forearm once, as if hardwired for no further intimacy, then melted into shadows between stalls, rain fragments curtaining his path. Ned felt the departure keenly, like the snapping of a bowstring whose arrow still flew. They would all feel its impact later. Next morning, the fair awoke sodden yet jubilant. Stalls unfurled damp bunting, smells of fried trout and rose sugar pervading puddles. Belicho sold 2 kegs of spice at handsome profit, pockets jingling. He agreed to continue north only if Ned doubled promise of payment upon safe arrival in the Riverlands. Ned assented, though coin purse thinning. When Sansa heard, she offered her silver hairpin engraved with a direwolf to cover part of cost. Ned refused, then compromised by letting Belicho hold it in bond, collateral rather than sale. They left Bitterbridge by a back lane used by dung gatherers, circumventing main toll. Sansa and Arya sat atop crates now, cloaks reversed to show drab hemp, faces smudged with ash to mimic lowborn freckles. Ned rode ahead on a spare dun gelding, scouting. The Kingswood Road wound through orchards heavy with late spring pears, and into the first sigh of forest. Pines dripped as though still weeping last night's storm. Ned plucked the final red quill from purse, and pinned it to a briar near Crosstrack East. Soon outriders would chase illusions deeper into Crownlands while real wolves padded southwest. On the second noon after Bitterbridge, the convoy stopped at a wayside inn called the Swan's Nest, perched above a lazy bend of the Blueburn. Smoke rose from its stone chimney, promising meat stew. Belicho insisted on a hot meal for drivers. Coin returned quickly when morale stayed firm. Ned left the girls' inside wagon as he inspected common room. Low rafters, fire crackling, patrons sparse. A pockmarked innkeep served bowls of lentils thick with boar fat. Ned chose a table near back wall, scanning travelers for sigils. He saw only hedge knights, a pair of Taroshi cloth peddlers, and one silent man in black rough-spun, nursing watered wine. Yet, as Ned lifted spoon, the silent man's hood tipped, revealing a clean-shaven jaw Ned half recognized. Jory Castle's second cousin, Tomard, once a Winterfell armsman who'd gone south with Janos Slint's bribe. Tomard's eyes widened, flicking to door. Ned's pulse thumped. He rose slowly, approaching. Tomard's hand slid to dagger, but Ned spoke first. Loyalty can yet win redemption. Tomard swallowed, gaze dancing between Ned's face and unseen memories. They said you were traitor, he muttered. They said the wolves turned red as lion manes. And you believe them? Ned kept voice soft. If I were traitor, would I travel with daughters hidden in spice crates? Tomard hesitated, knuckles whitening. Ned continued. A rider of the gold cloaks may earn gold, but a Winterfell man gains honor, and honor outlives gold. Tomard's shoulders sagged as though armor he discarded long ago pressed back to roost. He slid dagger away and met Ned's eyes. Tell me where to march. Ned clasped his forearm. Higher on as Belicho's guard. We ride for Longtable, then River Run. Keep silent of my name until cannons of truth deafen liars. Tomard nodded. Ned returned to table, heart pounding with the gamble. Some wolves strayed, but could still find pack. At dusk they camped along Blueburn's bank. Tomard, now armored in patched mail, drilled Arya in quick blade footwork while Sansa read a torn chapbook of Westerland ballads, smoothing pages where ink blurred. Ned mended a cracked wagon axle, calloused hands recalling carpenter's knots once learned to help Mikken. Each mundane act seemed charged. Fragile evidence of life rebuilt. 3 more days dawned and died. They passed shattered stone, ruin of an andal keep where ghosts allegedly wept each equinox. Sansa swore she heard faint harp music among tumbled blocks. They skirted bandit-ridden copses at dusk, firelight glimpsed behind bowls. Arya begged to prowl and spy, but Ned kept her close, promising hunts when safe. Near Longtable, lands turned lush, wheat waist-high, poppies blazing red. They approached the Merryweather Causeway on a misty morning. Guards wearing yellow apple sigils halted them, suspicious of foreign spices. Tomard presented Belicho's manifests. Ned remained stoic as drover. A herald trotted up, reading scroll sealed by Lord Orton Merryweather himself. All levies doubled in name of King Joffrey, by decree of Queen Regent Cersei. Belicho cursed beneath breath. Fees soared beyond purse. Ned stepped forward. Inform Lord Orton that Eddard Stark of Winterfell requests audience. I travel under plain raiment for safety, but the need is dire. Shock flashed across the guards. One galloped toward keep. While they waited, Arya and Sansa huddled inside wagon, hearts hammering. Ned rehearsed reasons. Catelyn once nursed Lady Jane Merryweather through winter fever. The debt may endure. An hour later, a palanquin of peregrine silk arrived. Within sat plump Lord Orton, powdered cheeks sagging, but eyes shrewd. He disembarked, bowed slightly. Lord Stark, songbirds told sad tales of your demise. Yet here you stand, hale if unshaven. Ned described escape in brief, stressing innocence, the false kingship of Joffrey, and peril to his children. Orton listened, twirling a perfumed kerchief. He gestured to the girls, now unveiled and weary. He saw honor etched on their faces, or perhaps glimpsed Catelyn's kindness years before. Either way, he ordered the levy waived, and offered them refuge within Longtable's walls. Ned thanked him but declined tarry. Each day south is danger. Orton provided fresh mounts, sealed letters of passage, and a pouch of silver. Tomard recruited 3 stable lads eager for adventure. More eyes, more swords. Belicho parted ways there, pockets fat. The spice wagon's secret no longer his burden. He pressed Sansa's hairpin back to Ned. Keep your silver wolf. Merchants remember who pays debts. He winked and drove east. With Merryweather horses and handful of volunteers, Ned adopted new strategy. Small party faster than convoy. They followed game trails along Mander's tributaries, using willow thickets as cover. Nights spent in shepherd huts, mornings crossing dew-laden meadows reeking of wild mint. Sansa's cheeks gained color. Arya caught rabbits with snare wire Qyburn had coiled beneath Ned's belt. Tamard taught them to gut and spit meat. Even Sansa learned, though she gagged first time then sternly commanded herself not to faint. One afternoon they halted upon a bluff overlooking golden fields. Wind carried smell of distant sea. Ned allowed the girls an hour to race the slope. Arya tumbled. Grass seeds in hair. Sansa gathered wildflowers, weaving a simple crown which he placed atop her sister's tangled locks. For a heartbeat Ned saw Winterfell's courtyard again, his daughters laughing before innocence shattered. Tears pricked, but did not fall. He was beyond tears, yet not beyond awe that joy survived. That evening Tamard returned from foraging with grim face. Ravens above. Smoke on horizon. Could be Lannister scouts. They camped little that night, riding by starlight through pine corridors, hoofbeats muffled by needles. Dawn found them near a ford across the Tumblestone. Mist clung to water like spilled milk. On far bank, River Run's banners should rise within 2 days' march. Safety tickled like a mirage. But as they approached the ford, armored silhouettes materialized from haze. 5 riders, bearing device of twin towers, linked by arch. House Frey. Their leader, Sir Stevron Frey, raised hand. "Hold, travelers." River Crossing taxed for his grace King Joffrey's cause. He eyed the girls, lingering too long. Ned's stomach chilled. Walder Frey's brood owed no love to Starks despite Catelyn's courtesy. Tamard leaned to Ned. "We could forge upstream, shallow water." Ned measured distance, speeded of riders, exhaustion in daughters' frames. He dismounted, stepped forward. "I am Eddard Stark. If it is coin you desire, name fair toll." Stevron's brow rose, curiosity piqued. "The traitor storms the Riverlands? My father will be amused." He signaled archers, emerging from mist along bank, more than a dozen. "Your toll, Lord Stark, is surrender. The Lannisters pay handsomely." Sansa gasped. Arya's fingers crept to needle. Ned lifted arms, palms outward. "Children, stand behind me." Hoofbeats thundered behind. From woods emerged a cavalry wedge of Tully outriders. Trout banners snapping. At point rode Sir Brynden Blackfish Tully, eyes flint under salt-peppered beard. "Put down your bows, Frey filth," he bellowed. "Touch one hair on Stark's head, and Walrus Walder dines alone at weddings henceforth." Arrows knocked against Frey's, tension stiff as drawn wire. Stevron considered odds. Blackfish's veterans outmatched his lean patrol. He spat into riverbank mud. "We collect no toll today." He wheeled horse, signaling retreat. Archers melted into fog like ghosts ashamed of shape. Ned exhaled. Brynden trotted forward, dismounting with surprising grace for man past 50. He clasped Ned's shoulders, eyes softer than legend. "Cat has worn a path across River Run's battlements looking south for you. You've grown leaner and uglier." Laughter cracked the tension. Even Arya smiled. They crossed Tumblestone under Tully Guard. River Run's granite towers loomed ahead, banners heavy with dew. Sansa gazed, face alight with hope. Arya closed fist around Needle, vowing to spar in courtyards bigger than kilns. Ned rode between them, the castle's silhouette swelling like dawn after polar night. Behind, fog devoured Frey tracks. Ahead may be safety, but wars brewed, kings multiplied, and north still called. Yet for this heartbeat, across murmuring water and blooming sky, family breathed the same clean air. And in that breath, Ned Stark felt a slow unclenching, like thaw of ice that had gripped him since the Black Cell. He looked at his daughters, one poised like a song's refrain, the other coiled like arrow flight, and whispered to silent gods. "The pack endures." "Oh, eh." Rain misted the Tumblestone and gossamer vales as River Run's portcullis yawned. Ned felt the last months peel from his skin with every stride across the drawbridge, as though invisible hands stripped away grime of dungeons, road dust, and nightmares. Beyond the gatehouse, the courtyard opened to a swirl of color and sound. Soldiers drilling, grooms leading destriers, kitchen hands dumping peelings for rooting hogs. But everything dimmed beneath a single high, clear cry. "Father!" Caitlin stood atop the keep's outer stair, auburn hair spilling loose beneath a shawl, eyes brimming. She had never seemed tall to him, and yet, in that instant, she filled the sky. His tired legs lifted him 2 steps at a time. Her feet flew down. They collided halfway, arms knotting tight. For a moment he simply breathed her. The faint scent of river mint, candle smoke, and the warm salted tear that slipped across his lip when she pressed her brow to his. Sansa and Arya reached them next, one soaring into her mother's embrace with a sobbed apology for letters that never came, the other throwing arms around both parents, nearly knocking Ned from the stair. The guards nearby pretended more focus on shield polish than strictly required. Even Sir Brynden blinked suspicious moisture away before ordering the portcullis lowered. They gathered in a solar drenched by late sun. Caitlin poured wine with hands that trembled only at first. Then strength returned, forged sharper than before, redoubled by the months she had borne war's dread alone. She listened while Ned recounted escape. Varys Quay turning in rust, the crawlspace, the skiff, the kilns, Bitterbridge's fair. The phrase at the ford. She asked questions crisp as arrows. What of Stannis? Did Renly's banners march? Has Littlefinger slithered deeper into the Lannisters' fold? Ned answered as best as rumor allowed, though weary mind ached. When he spoke Varys' name, Caitlin stiffened, yet she recognized the spider's gamble had saved the pack. Dusk deepened. Maester Vyman arrived with broth, honeyed for strength, and word that messengers already galloped to the twins, Seaguard, and Moat Cailin. Ned slept that night in a guest bed. Caitlин's fingers laced through his. He woke from dreams of snowfields and bells to find her watching him. Tears, dried but shining. "You came back," she whispered, and he touched her cheek in silent answer. Morning brought councils. Riverrun's great hall thrummed with lords bannermen of the Trident, Mallisters, Blackwoods, Bracken's glaring daggers across aisle. As if history itself paced the flagstones. At high seat sat Hoster Tully, too frail now to rise, cheeks sunken, but eyes fierce enough that muttering ceased when he lifted hand. Caitlin stood beside him, voice clear. "My lord father names Eddard Stark his honored guest and rightful warden of the North." Murmurs rippled. Ned bowed only once. Sir Brynden unfolded a map across the dais. Pins denoted alliances. Lion banners amassed at Harrenhal under Sir Jaime's command. Tywin yet encamped along the Red Fork's reach. Reports of Lannister outriders probing the Green Fork threatened supply lines north. Brynden's finger traced an arrow from Moat Cailin downward. Robb marches with near 20,000, joined by Karstarks and Glovers. They reached the crossing in 10 days. Ned digested this, throat thick. His boy, barely a man, commanding wolf banners, aflutter. Pride clashed with dread. "We must send word to divert him," Ned said. "Let him know his sisters are safe. There is no need for more blood." "Man's blood is already spilled," growled Lord Jason Mallister. "Joffrey struck at the Riverlords, pillaged the Trident, hanged mine own nephew at Fairmarket. Young wolf marches because war came unbidden." Ned eyed the map. "Even so, a true king sits not the Iron Throne. Stannis, rightful by law, rallies Storm's End. If North and Riverlands back him, we may shorten this war." Caitlin touched his sleeve. "Robb rides on more than rage. He rides on vows pledged by houses who seek independence from southern crowns." She hesitated. Some lords whisper he should be king himself. Shock rippled through the hall. Old talk revived, king in the north. Ned felt weight of ancient crowns long buried. He spoke slowly. "If the realm fractures, winter will devour all. Better to set right the line of succession and hold the 7 kingdoms together." Yet even as words left him, he sensed undercurrent. Years of Southron meddling that leached northern coffers. Southern justice that had caged Ned and near slain his daughters. Keeping the realm together sounded wise from a map room. By hearths in Deepwood, Motte, or White Harbor, It might sound like chains. Debate pressed into midday, only pausing when Arya burst in, dragging Tamard by the ear. She caught him sneaking a flagon of brandy from pantry, claimed it a security breach. Laughter cracked tension. Lord Blackwood applauded her spirit while the maester hustled Arya out. Ned rubbed brow. Child's antics reminding war-hungry lords what they fought to protect. By afternoon, ravens arrived. One from Moat Cailin, Robb's hand. The parchment trembled in Ned's grip. "Father, I ride to free you or die. These Southrons forget the North does not kneel long." He closed eyes, heart lurching in belated echo of his son's march. Another raven bore darker tidings. Renly crowned himself at Highgarden amid cheers of Reach and Stormland banners. A second Baratheon king now contended. Sun faded. Candles dot the hall. Lord Hoster dozed, yet a final visitor sought audience. A courier wearing the crowned stag of Storm's End quartered with fiery heart of Lady Melisandre's faith. He bowed to Ned. "Lord Stannis extends invitation to treat at Storm's End or Dragonstone. Under guest right. To unite against false lions and the leech upon the realm." He unfurled a missive, sealed in black wax. Upon breaking it, Ned read the harsh, precise script. "Stark honor is legend. Lend it to true right and justice will be swift. Bring daughters for sanctuary, receive restitution." Ned's mind word. Support Stannis, a lawful path. But could he drag Riverrun's lords, his own folk, into another sail south? And what of Robb? Already pledged to war. Dilemma coiled around his thoughts like constrictor. That night he walked ramparts with Brynden. The moon was a thin slip. River mist curled pale. "Your boy has hearts of the North beating again," Brynden said. "Careful. Some hearts once awakened on answer to southern calls." Ned leaned on crenellation. "I thought duty clear. Now duty has branches." He confessed his fear. Robb's youth hardened by war counsel beyond father's reach. Arya craving vengeance, Sansa's innocence frayed. Catelyn's hope anchored to banners that might drown. Brynden listened, silent but not unkind. At dawn horns pealed. Robb's outriders sighted across the Red Fort. Riverrun erupted. Ned and Catelyn stood at the barbican as columns appeared. Steel shimmering damp, jaundiced light, direwolf standards snapping. Front rank bore Grey Wind banners. Behind strode great Grey Direwolf itself. Grey Wind trotted ahead, muzzle blood-flecked from morning hunt. When Robb rode through gates, helm under arm, Ned drew breath. Boy's face leaner, resolve etched around jaw. They met in the courtyard's hush, cut only by horse snorts. Robb slid down and walked to his father. Each regarded the other heartbeat. Two men measuring the distance carved by months. Then Robb knelt. "Father," he said, voice rough. Ned lifted him, folded him to his chest. Cheers exploded from men around. Grey Wind threw back head, howling. Sansa watched tears spill. Arya grinned, punching air. Council reconvened that evening in Riverrun's Lord's Hall, now crowded with northern captains. Greatjon Umber roaring jokes, Galbart Glover nodding sober agreements, Roose Bolton silent as frost. Robb recounted early skirmishes, the taking of the King's Road forts, and jealousy between Karstarks and Umbers quelled by feats in battle. Ned listened, pride tempered by shadow of casualty lists. "The Lannister host holds Riverrun by throat," Robb concluded, pointing at Redtop Pin. "Sir Jaime's outriders burnt 7 streams, slaughtered peasants. We strike at dawn with pincer crossing at Fair Market." Before strategy deepened, Lord Rickard Karstark rose, graybeard bristling. "Why stop at freeing the Riverlands? Joffrey killed your lord father, holds your sisters." He gestured at Ned, then noticing surprise, blinked. News of Ned's rescue shifted the room's air. Tony Karstark tugged father's sleeve, but Rickard continued. "Kingslayer must pay. If not king in the north, what then? Another southern monarch who'll forget us when banners furl." "Nemnan." Greatjon pounded table. "Hear, hear." Catelyn glanced to Ned, question and worry entwined. Ned cleared throat. "I live, yes, by grace of fortune and courage of a spider once opposed to me. But had Joffrey's will endured, My head would rest on Spike. Robert's bastards, Stannis claim. All these prove the Iron Throne's rot. Yet breaking the realm ensures blood unending. Bolton's gaze flickered to Ned, then Robb. Blood flows already. Better our spill now than children's children later. His mild tone chilled. Argument erupted. Voices overlapping. Banners of loyalty fluttering intangible. Ned stepped back beside a pillar, heart pounding with memory of council chambers in King's Landing where soft words hid daggers. He closed eyes, called the words of House Stark. Winter is coming. The realm verged on winter, none could escape. Splitting kingdoms might scatter resources when longest nights fell. A hush-cut argument, Robb stood. At 19, he wore command like new mail, still shining. My lords, he said, we ride to save Riverlands, and you have answered call. Yet news alters course. My sisters stand free. My father leads us. He faced Ned. Tell me truth, father, will bending knee to Stannis end war sooner than crowning ourselves? Ned searched his son, glimpsing innocence still but war-hardened. He recalled conversations with Robert long ago, when rebellion seemed righteous. He chose words with weight of snow-laden branches. Long ago the North swore to Aegon Targaryen and bent southward, willingly for peace. Since then, kings have failed us, yes. But the long night falls on all regardless of borders. I have seen men cut down for crowns, and little folk suffer more than high lords. He inhaled. If we break away, we must be certain we can stand alone when winter devours crops and monsters stir beyond wall. Allies matter. Roose Bolton spoke softly. Southrons seldom send grain north when their own fields freeze. Independence may force us to rely on ourselves, no bad thing. Greyjohn barked mirth. The North feeds itself or starves. Southerners never saved our harvests. Catelyn raised palm. But winters lengthen. The last long winter lasted almost 10 years. Without southern trade our people died in droves. My father saw their bones stacked like peat when he traveled north with hosts of King Jaehaerys' second eye. All quieted at memory. Arya, perched behind a pillar, whispered to Sansa. They'll talk until ravens roost. Debate rolled thunder past midnight. Ned felt weariness seep, yet he remained, sense of duty compelling ear to every lord. When at last torches guttered low, the assembly recessed and left Ned with Robb. Father and son walked balconies above Riverrun's dark moat. Water glimmered with torch reflections. I thought you dead, Robb murmured, voice nearly breaking. I swore vengeance. It kept me upright. Ned placed hand on his shoulder. Vengeance arrives swift as snowslide, buries righteous and sinner. War may be unavoidable, but vengeance cannot steer outcome. Robb nodded. But they murdered our household guards, butchered the Riverlands. They will do worse if unchecked. We will answer crimes with justice. Let justice, not rage, hold the blade, Ned said. He studied his boy's face. You have grown. Robb looked away at Moon. I still feel like that child chasing kittens through kennels. He exhaled. I asked myself each night what you would do. Now you stand here and I'm not certain anymore. Ned pulled him into an embrace. That is how you know you are grown. When questions outpace answers, we will search together. Next morning, Outriders brought word. Tywin Lannister broke camp, marching east toward Harrenhal to combine with Sir Jaime. With half of Lion Host in motion, Riverrun's liberation window widened. Robb resolved. Attack Jaime's reduced force near the Whispering Wood. Ned, though reluctant to plunge once more into battlefield, agreed to serve as counselor. His mind knew Jaime's swordcraft. His instincts predicted his rashness. Before March, Ned visited his daughters in Riverrun's Godswood, a stunted grove transplanted decades prior. Sparrow song, threaded willow hush. Sansa knelt at slender weirwood trunk, fingers woven in silent prayer, while Arya practiced thrusts against straw dummy sheed erected from garden stakes. Ned watched them, heart heavy with choice ahead. He approached Arya. She halted mid-parry. Going away again? To war, but near. You remain here with Sansa, your mother, and Lord Hoster's guard. Riverrun's walls stand strong. Arya's mouth twisted. Stronger, if I wield sword at gate. Ned knelt to eye level. Your time will come. For now, protect your sister. Needle's point may be sharper than any lance if used at right moment. She pondered, then nodded. He kissed Sansa's brow. She caught his hand. Bring Robb home when this battle ends. I will, he promised. Though promise felt brittle in wind, he pressed her a small leather pouch. Inside lay the Black Moonstar token from Varys. If danger ever finds you and your mother, show this to the Septon at the crossing. It will guide you on secret roads. Sansa gripped it. That evening the host assembled, pikes gleaming, banners whipping. Ned donned mail lent by Sir Brynden, sword at belt, gray cloak swirling. Catelyn came to bid farewell. She grasped his sleeve. I lost you once to a dungeon, she whispered. Do not let me lose you to a battlefield. He pressed forehead to hers. I will return. 3 days' march brought the army into pine-clad hills, bordering Whispering Wood, where undergrowth muffled thousands of steps. Scouts reported Jaime's vanguard encamped along ridge near old ruins. Robb crafted plan, Greyjohn to feint frontal assault, while Ned led a flanking column through goat paths to hamstring Lannister rear. Night before battle, Ned shared small campfire with Galbart Glover, Mage Mormont, and Theon Greyjoy, ward-turned-warrior who rode with Robb. Ned studied Theon, whose grin masked storm. He recalled Balon Greyjoy's rebellion and worried Theon's loyalty might tilt if Ironborn sensed weakness. But tonight, Theon pledged to cut lion tails. Past midnight, Ned walked alone among dark pines. He recalled other nights. Tower of Joy beneath dawn-red sky, Robert's camp outside Stony Sept. In each memory he swung blade for cause he believed righteous. Yet each victory birthed seeds of future grief. He knelt on moss, murmured quiet prayer to old gods for sons and daughters, for even enemies' innocence. Wind ruffled branches like sigh. Battle cracked open at dawn's pale swell. Greyjohn's horns bellowed, drawing Jaime's horse lords downhill. Hidden among brush, Ned's column waited heartbeats until golden ranks thundered past. Then surged, hacking at flanks. Ned fought with measured fury, arm sluggish from injuries of dungeon, but mind precise. He parried young knight's bright sword, disarmed him with twist, pommel-struck temple, moved on. Around him Mormont women roared bear song. Glover axemen cut stirrups from mounts, sending armored riders crashing. Gray wind darted like silver death, hamstringing chargers. Robb plunged after, guards straining to keep pace. Ned glimpsed his son cross swords with Sir Adam Marbrand. Sparks flowering? Ned engaged another foe. When he looked again, Adam lay prone, Robb seeking next challenge. A trumpet shrilled. Jaime realized trap, attempted retreat to riverbank. Ned's horse leapt fallen trunk. He spied Kingslayer ahead, gilded armor streaked with sap, carving path toward small clearing. Ned spurred forward, but Robb reached Jaime first. Ned's heart lurched. He veered, dispatching lions who closed on Robb's flank. Dust shouts clash, time blurred. When Ned broke through, he saw Robb and Jaime locked. Youthful strength versus seasoned finesse. Robb's greatsword crashed. Jaime slipped, riposte singing. Gray wind circled, snarling. Ned hesitated. These two must shape realm, intervening might crush pride. Yet if Robb fell, everything ended. Jaime feinted left, cut shallow across Robb's thigh, steel-parted mail. Robb staggered. Ned charged, parried blow meant to finish. Sparks flew. Jaime pivoted, recognized his opponent. Golden hair matted. He grinned. Stark risen from grave. Ned met him blade to blade. He felt ribs protest, but resolve steeled. Jaime's speed undimmed. Each strike flickered serpentine. Ned absorbed, returning calculated slashes. Yield, he rasped, for sake of realm. Jaime laughed. Realm? I serve my kin. Come claim me. No. They circled. Robb regained footing, pressed from opposite side. Two Starks now. Jaime's poise wavered. He lunged at Robb. Gray wind intercepted, teeth puncturing pauldron, dragging him. Jaime kicked free but stumbled. Ned punched pommel into his gauntlet wrist, blade spinning away. Robb tackled, forcing Kingslayer to ground. Silence swelled. Nearby combat stilled as soldiers witnessed lion downed by wolves. Robb rose, blood seeping from thigh. "Bind him," he ordered hoarsely. Ned retrieved Jaime's sword, passed it to Maid for safekeeping. Kingslayer laughed even as chains clinked. "Father will roast you in your own hall," he sneered. Ned said only, "Your father rides east. By the time he learns, you will dine in Riverrun's dungeon." Jaime's grin faltered. Battle swept on barely an hour more, before lions broke. Captives herded, dead counted. Northern losses, heavy yet fewer than feared. Robb stood while Maester stitched leg, commanders reporting. Ned felt weight of victory forging tide. But he reminded son that war only begins when first triumph sings. They returned to River Run amidst cheers. Jaime imprisoned below same stones that once held Ned's daughters safe. Catelyn greeted husband alive, tears this time mixed with grim pride for Robb's wound. Nights turned crisp, ravens flapped urgent from Eastwatch bearing tales of otherworldly wights marauding small ranger posts. Ned chilled more than autumn breeze. Long night indeed crept. Robb convened lords in River Hall. Greatjon roared desire to press King's Landing now. Karstark demanded Kingslayer's head for slain sons. Bolton suggested trade Jaime for peace. Catelyn urged caution. Ned stood beside his son as voices surged like river in flood. He raised a hand. Hall hushed. "Lords," he began, voice steady. "We stand at crossing of many wars. War for throne, war for vengeance. War against darkness beyond wall. Choose path not by fury but by what realm must survive. My Lord Father taught, when the snows fall and the white winds blow, lone wolf dies but pack survives. Our pack now larger, Riverlords, Northmen, any who cherish living breath, decide not only for banners but for children unborn." Silence deepened. Robb sought Father's eyes, found anchor. He addressed Hall. "I will not kill captive for rage nor march south blind. I send envoys to Stannis, to Renly, to Iron Throne. Each offered chance to parley under guest right with my father as mediator. Should they refuse or betray, world will know who sought peace first." Some growled, others nodded. Robb pressed. "Meanwhile we fortify north and river, we ready for whites in winter. We are Starks, builders of walls against storms, not only breakers of chains." Decision recorded, raven quills scratched. Ned exhaled quietly. War yet unsolved, but seed of measured strength sown. That evening, Varys' raven arrived. Black wax seal shaped as spider. Letter inside brief. Lions roaring louder, Queen Hunt's daughters still, claims treason stolen. Plan web, within Red Keep, to still her tongue. Hold Kingslayer, bargain may shield girls anew. Tell the North, remember snow hides footsteps of others more than blood of men. D. Ned folded note into cloak. He walked battlements where moon glazed river silver. Far off, lightning flickered above distant capital. He imagined Cersei's rage discovering Jaime in chains. Joffrey's petty cruelty widened, Littlefinger counting chaos prophets. Storms brewed on every horizon. Footsteps soft approached. It was Catelyn, shawl wrapped tight. She leaned on parapet. "You guided them well today. I wander half blind," Ned confessed. "Every path forks while night descends. But you walk," she said, "and they follow not because you shout loudest but because you doubt your own virtue. That keeps sword aimed true." He traced her fingers under moonlight. "Whatever crown rises, we must protect our children's world." Catelyn gazed north where stars glittered. "Then let winter come. We will meet it together." In the courtyard below, Arya and Bran's direwolf replacement, now grown dog she adopted, sparred with wooden sticks, Sansa overseeing with maidenly dignity, softened by occasional laugh. Robb limped from smithy, gray wind at heel, offering commentary. Tamard polished blade while humming northern lullaby. For one fragile moment, Pack gathered within castle walls. Ned inhaled night air heavy with wet earth and distant fires. Tomorrow ravens would fly across kingdoms, carrying pleas for peace or challenges of war. Tomorrow Tywin would rage, queens would plot, dead would walk ice fields. But tonight, Winterfell's heart beat within Riverlands, steady, defiant. The pack endured, and the man once nearly broken beneath Red Keep's stones stood unbent beside the woman who had never doubted his return, beneath a sky rolling slowly toward winter's long reign, ready to hold the realm together or watch it shatter, yet certain at last of so long as the pack endured, spring could be coaxed from even the bleakest snow. A.D. Kill. Moonlight faded into pewter dawn over Riverrun's walls, and Ned Stark stood in the rookery, tying black silk around a raven's leg. Beside him, Maester Vyman sealed 3 more scrolls, one for Stannis Baratheon on Dragonstone, one for Renly beneath Highgarden's roses, and a third addressed simply in Stark sigils, Castle Black, Lord Commander, Jorah Mormont. Ned's ink-stained fingers paused over the last parchment. He wrote only a single line beneath the Night's Watch plea for men and dragonglass. Winter rides south faster than any king. Wax hardened, the raven croaked and launched into gray sky. When he returned to the yard, the world smelled of steel and wet leather. Robb drilled bowmen on the outer bailey, where straw butts sprouted like mortuary markers. His wound scarcely slowed him, bandage peeking from greave as he braced each shaft. Gray wind prowled behind the line, growling when anyone's elbow drooped. Ned watched, silent, until Robb dismissed the archers and limped toward his father. "The Maester says you need rest," Ned said. "Bows need straighter spines more," Robb answered, wiping sweat. He nodded to towers where banners snapped. "Tully Trout alongside Direwolf. If Stannis or Renly answers your letters, those men must be ready." Ned placed hand on Robb's shoulder. "Courage leads them, but steadiness saves them." They walked toward Armory. "We can still spare blood. The Iron Throne may yield to reason." Robb's mouth hardened. "Jaime boasts Tywin gathers 90,000. Reason seldom halts lions. Sometimes a single hostage halts more." Ned glanced toward dungeon entrance where Kingslayer languished. Robb's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. 2 days later, the first answer arrived on Black Wing. Renly's scroll bore a green wax seal, with golden stag entwined by rose. Catelyn read aloud in Council Hall. "To Lord Eddard Stark, Warden in truth, you stand amongst those who smell lion rot. My banners swell. Bend the knee to the one king crowned by love, not law, and I shall make the north bloom again. Yours in summer, Renly of House Baratheon, first of his name." Great John guffawed. "Love won't melt snow." Karstark spat. Bolton merely traced the rose-shaped seal, as though assessing how best to flay paper. Ned folded scroll. "He offers sweet words, scarce substance. Yet he remains ally against Lannisters. Dead and Nabn." Stannis Raven came at dusk, exhausted, feathers ragged from flying against an unexpected storm. His letter burned with clipped disdain. "Lord Eddard Stark, I welcome honor amongst vipers. Sail at once to Storm's End under banner of truce. Proof of bastardy must break false throne. Any who hesitate aid usurpation. Burned out. Light justice. Stannis Baratheon, King Goddarda Wall." Ned rolled parchment slowly, feeling heat despite ink's chill. Stannis promised justice but lacked mercy. Robb muttered, "He demands, not invites." But the last raven bore no seal, only a torn scrap from Jorah Mormont. "Dead things in the woods. Need men. Dragonglass, king's peace. Send help or realm falls." The bird itself shivered, as if dread clung to its pinions. Vyman found pale frost on feathers, though dawn was warm. Council hushed. Ned stood. Southern crowns quarrel over swords while dead walk. "I will speak with both brothers, but first we must answer the wall." He paced map. "We dispatch lumber and blacksmiths north to forge weapons. Galbart, ready wagons. Maeg, lend ironmongers. Mandaro. Blackfish Brynden frowned. Every carter we send drains grain for armies here. Armies south cannot hold if winter whites swarm behind, Ned replied. No one answered. Preparations unfurled. Carpenters shaping crates, bartering for obsidian arrowheads from Lyseni traders, ravens bearing purchase orders across gulfs. Sansa oversaw seamstresses, stitching thick black cloaks for the new recruits. Arya insisted on tempering dagger tips in wildfire-oiled braziers, citing a line she overheard from Gendry the smith's prentice. Hotter steel sings louder. Catelyn did not scold. Quiet purpose steadied her daughters more than any lectures. Within a fortnight, a column of 80 wagons rumbled north, flanked by Umber lancers. Ned watched them depart beneath early snowflakes that drifted like lost down from white ravens yet to fly. Not winter yet, but its herald. Then came word. A Lannister column under Sir Stafford besieged Derry, threatening River Run's grain road. Robb left Glover and Bolton to man Castle while he rode east with half the host. Ned remained behind, plotting parley. When dawn of departure neared, Catelyn appeared in travel cloak. You saved our girls, she said. Now let me help save our sons. I will ride to Storm's End in your stead. Stannis will heed a mother's plea for realm's children better than a lord's bargain. Ned hesitated. Memories of King's Landing corridors, cat holding blade to Tyrion's throat, flickered. Yet her resolve shone. He kissed her hands. Go, but take Sir Wendell and 10 good men. And this? He pressed a folded scrap of parchment. The Tower of Joy names. Long kept secret, listing Lyanna's child's truth. If righteousness sways even the sternest, proof sways more. Catelyn rode south with dawn mists. Ned watched her banner, tilly fish over stark gray, until hills swallowed it. Days after, ravens whispered that Renly marched toward Storm's End too, banners blooming riotous. 2 brothers, 1 crown, 1 fortress Tory. Ned channeled worry into River Run's defense. Jaime languished in cell lit by skinny candle. Ned visited one eve. Kingslayer reclined on straw, shackles rust-brown, dado. He smirked. Come lecture honor again? I came with choice, Ned replied. Write your sister. Withdraw from Riverland's Bree northern prisoners, and I will urge Robb to ransom you instead of hang. Jaime leaned, chains clinking. Cersei would burn half kingdom for me. She may, shackles or none. He cocked head. Tell me, Stark, did you find bastard babes in Robert's alehouse brothels? They vanish. His smile thinned. Careful. My sister plucks roots so no stems remain. Ned's stomach tightened. He departed, unsure if warning or boast. Night that followed, Arya sneaked into cell block, slipping by drowsy guards, needle at hip. She stared at Kingslayer through bars until he stirred. Little wolf, he purred. She pointed steel. If lions hurt my pack again, I'll gut you. Her voice wobbled, but eyes blazed. Jaime laughed. You haven't the weight. Arya slashed keys off peg, tossed them into mud far from reach, and skipped away, leaving echo of promise. Days later, Raven screamed. Renly dead within his camp, shadows reported stalking tent. Stannis blamed. Reach lords fractured. Some swore to Tyrells now riding to King's Landing. Catelyn's escort missing. Ned's heart hammered. He pored over scrolls, until letters swam. And at last message arrived. Catelyn safe at Bitterbridge Septry. Stannis marched north with Stormlander Corps, accepting parley on Trident. Relief flooded but soon iced. Battle lines redrew hourly. Robb sent Raven, Derry relieved, but Greatjon and Karstark nearly came to blows over hostage plan. He urged father to join him near Maidenpool before pressing on Harrenhal. Ned resolved, time to leave Riverrun. Delegate governance to Brynden, and Sir Edmure, newly freed from siege. He arranged departure with Corps Guard and Jaime as bound captive. Prisoner exchange at front might yet end a stalemate. Sansa protested departure. Arya insisted on going. Ned refused both but compromise. Sansa stay with Lord Hoster. Politics at court of men who trusted her courtesy. Arya journeyed disguised as page errand to learn fieldcraft yet remain under father's eye. Sansa embraced him tearfully. Arya grinned behind cropped hair, already tugging jerkin to hide chest. They rode east, autumn winds knifing. Jaime chained to saddle, flanked by Bolton's silent men. Knights by campfire. Ned and Jaime spoke sparingly. One evening, under brittle stars, Jaime said, "If you truly want realm's peace, toss crowns aside and let wolves, lions, dragons all answer to white steel beyond that wall." He spat into dirt. "But men want songs, not snow." Ned studied flicker of fire in lion eyes and glimpsed something. Perhaps remorse, perhaps boredom. On third day, columns of smoke smudged horizon. King's Landing ablaze. Refugees fled west, babbling of wildfire beneath sept of Baelor, green hell surging from stores. Tyrion Lannister commanded to deter Stannis' fleet, now broken and burning on Blackwater. Before Ned could weigh import, Outrider galloped. Stannis captured by Tyrell Lannister alliance, led by young Lord Tywin's grandson. Tyrion saved city Marjorie queen-to-be. Stannis retreated broken. Ned's mission reeled. If Lannisters again strong, exchanging Jaime worthless. Worse, King in the North now faces united lions and roses. As Ned debated next steps, Bolton approached with letter bearing flayed man seal of Dreadfort. He glanced once, expression unreadable. Bolt of dread stabbed Ned. Bolton spoke softly, word from the north. Ironborn attack Deepwood Motte, capture Winterfell under Theon Greyjoy. Ned staggered. Arya's gasp strangled. Jaime, overhearing, raised brow. Robb's trust misplaced. Ned gathered commanders. "We ride to Moat Cailin at once. Our home burns." Bolton's eyes glinted. "My riders swiftest. Let me proceed to secure passes." Ned, uneasy, agreed. Bolton departed with Bastard of Bolton, Ramsay, unsettling visage and moonlit path. They veered northwest, abandoning ransom plan. Jaime remained captive for now, chip for later. As they crossed Trident's Ford, snow flurries thickened. The white ravens had flown. True winter fell early. Supply lines thin. Ned pushed hard, days without decent rest. Desolation met them. Villages sacked by Ironborn. Corpses on pikes wearing wolf badges, twisted by Greyjoy spite. At Maidenpool, they rejoined Robb's host, bruised from skirmishes, with Gregor Clegane's reavers, but still cohesive. Ned embraced his son. Grief over Winterfell grim in both faces. "Mother?" Robb asked. No raven yet from Cat Septry. Both feared worst, but pushed fear deep. Strategy Council in Drafty Hall of Lord Mooten. Rescue Winterfell. Secure north before pressing Iron Throne. But roads choked by snow, Moat Cailin impenetrable. Blackfish proposed boats from White Harbor via Bight, but White Harbor under siege by Victarion's longships. Choices dwindled. Night after council, Raven arrived at last, Caitlyn's hand. She escaped Bitterbridge amid Renly chaos, heading north with Brienne of Tarth, bearing message vital: Shadow killed king. Magic returns. Red woman births darkness. Beware dragons hatch in east. Ned read by torch until lines blurred. Everything frayed. More ravens. Daenerys Targaryen alive. Dragons at Qarth. Others stirring. Ned realized realm's petty crowns meaningless in face of fire and ice born anew. He convened Robb, Brynden, Maesters. "We must forge grand pact. North, River, Vale, Storm remnants, even Dragon Queen across sea, unite against darkness. First, we retake Winterfell and Wall." Robb nodded, resolve diamond sharp. Brynden planned covert strike. Small elite riding through Neckmarsh guided by Cranagman. Circumvent Ironborn hold. Arya volunteered scout. Ned refused. She argued. He relented only to Cranagman escort teaching her frog spear craft, while hosts waited. Jaime overheard talk of pack. One frigid dawn he requested parley. Guards led him to Ned's tent. "If White Walkers real as gossip," Jaime said, "your kingdoms need every blade. My father won't heed unless threat at door. Release me and I swear, on what little honor you believe I have, I will convince him to send men north. I will convince him to send men north." I... Robb snarled. Sweet lies. But Ned studied Kingslayer. Behind arrogance lurked desperation. He had heard stories of Tyrion defending Blackwater with wildfire. If Tyrion believed in monsters of winter, he might open lion coffers. Ned offered terms. Swear by steel and gods, old and new. Ride south under escort. Bring proof of Lannister host, marching north by spring. Otherwise, my blade ends your line. Jaime accepted, cutting palm on oath dagger, blood steaming in frosty air. Ned ordered chains struck, replaced by rag-wrapped promise. While Jaime departed under guard for River Run Exchange Post, Ned's strike force. 500 picked Northmen, 200 trident bowmen, a dozen Crannog scouts, slipped into the neck. Paths turned treacherous, bog-sucking horses, ghost lights flickering. Nights they bivouacked on hummocks. Frog stew bubbling. Arya learned to move soundless as reed cat. Spear frogs mid-leap, ... She earned praise from Howland Reed's son Jojen, who dreamed green dreams of wolf blood under snow. He whispered to Arya at Moonlit Pool, "You will close eyes forever and open others." She frowned, thinking him daft. On 10th day, they neared Moat Cailin. Towers looming like busted teeth, ironborn banners snapping. Reed's marsh snakes guided them through secret causeway. At dusk Ned crawled on belly to ridge, saw Theon's men drunk on stolen mead, fires bright. Among prisoner cages, he spotted Maester Luwin's gray robe, lads from Winterfell's training yard, and, heartbreak, the charred ruins of familiar Crane's Nest armory. Plan formed swiftly. Crannogmen infiltrate via Watergate, open western sally. Northern spearmen rush, archers cut ramparts. Silence essential. Night fell thick with fog. Arya begged to join infiltration. Ned granted her post with Luwin's cage, unlock while fight raged. Battle cracked with owl cry signal. Shadows rose from reeds, knives slitting throats. Ned led charge through splintered palisade. Ironborn scrambled, cursing. Spear found Ned's side, mail held. He lopped attacker's axe arm, shoved onward. Horns blared from central tower. Theon's voice panicked. On rampart area crept, lockpick stolen from River Run smithy twisting with grit. Luwin startled but hushed. She freed him. Then 2 Miller's boys. Ironborn stumbled near. Arya stabbed low behind knee, hamstring biting. Her heart hammered but hands held. She shepherded captives toward hidden cut. Inside Great Yard, Ned confronted Theon beneath broken direwolf banner he once admired as ward. Theon held crossbow towards a kneeling boy. Little Rickon, dirt-streaked but alive. "Back or he dies," Theon snarled, eyes red. Ned froze, recalling Ironborn's lonely smile once. He spoke softly. "This is not you, Theon. My son once called you brother." Wind rattled burnt timbers. Theon's bow shook. Rickon met Ned's eyes, trying brave. Suddenly, horn blast south. Bolton's sigil banners approaching, reinforcements sooner than expected. Theon's gaze flickered. Ned seized opening, stepped forward. Bolt loosed wild, scraping Ned's helm, burying in wagon behind. Gray wind lunged from shadows, jaw clamping Theon's arm. Crossbow clattered. Stark soldiers swarmed, binding Ironborn. Rickon ran to Ned, sobbing. Ned clutched him, then hugged Bran, rescued earlier by Crannogmen from collapsed tower. Tears blurred sight, his broken boys breathing. Bolton's riders arrived. Ramsay surveyed carnage with unsettling smile. Ned thanked him but sensed chill beneath courtesy. Bolton's took Ironborn captives, promising secure transport. Ramsay eyed Theon like gamefowl. Ned warned, "Treat him as prisoner of war, not prey." Ramsay bowed too deep. Winterfell lay in ruin, but walls still stood. Over following days, they buried dead, raised tents inside yard. Maester Luwin stitched Ned's scalp, set Rickon at table to memorize new lordly words, while Bran turned wheels of broken Maester's tower, strengthening legs. Arya roamed charred halls with Ghost. Jones Direwolf sent south by crate months ago after ranging wound healed. To scent hidden foes. When she found Summer's collar amid rubble, she wept softly, but pressed on. Raven arrived from Catelyn. She and Brienne reached White Harbor, convincing Lord Manderley to break siege with surprise sortie. Harbor freed, fleet available. She sailed inland upriver on longboat, bringing news. Dragon Queen across narrow sea offered alliance. Messenger at White Harbor spoke of flame-born pact if Westeros united against dead. Rumor only, yet hope. Robb marched hard from south, meeting at Barrowlands where snow knee-deep. Father and son embraced amid swirling flakes. Robb knelt before Winterfell's ravaged gate, vowing rebuild. Lords assembled. Manderley, Umber, Karstark, Glover, Reed. Even Lady Barbary Ryswell arrived with cavalry. They lit torches in Godswood's frost-coated branches. Ned pressed palm against Hartree's face, whispered thanks. Council convened in Great Hall, roofless to sky. Ned recounted realm's shape. Lannister Tyrell hold King's Landing. Stannis wounded yet alive. Dragons growing across sea. Knights watch desperate. He turned to assembly. North can choose isolation, he said, voice echoing ruined rafters, or stand as rock others rally upon. Winter is no longer season but war between living and dead. Snowflakes whirled through gap overhead. I propose this. Declare Confederation of Realms free and united. Each kingdom sovereign within but bound by pact against darkness. Offer parley to every king, queen, and pretender. Invite Daenerys Targaryen if rumor speaks true. If Iron Throne rejects, we stand with those who answer. Murmurs rose. Some balked. Old wounds to dragons. Reed spoke first. When swamps freeze, frogs burrow by sharing heat. Greyjohn roared support. Manderley, pragmatic, noted trade boon. Even Karstark nodded. Grief for sons, still raw but vision larger now. Robb placed sword before council. I was crowned king in the north by vengeance, not design. I lay crown upon this table until war against dead is won. Afterwards, our peoples may choose freely. Shock rippled, humility more potent than command. Hall fell hush. Ned felt tears prick. His boy surpassed father. Lords one by one laid blades beside crown. Symbols of houses pledging to cause greater than banners. Snow drifted onto steel, hissing. Letters flew. To Stannis offering truce under old god's weirwood oath. To Tyrion Lannister, newly hand after his siege heroics, requesting host support. To Dorne by way of Prince Doran's spymaster. To Vale through Lysa's court, coaxed by promise of defending Erie passes. To Daenerys by merchant ship, sailing east. As ravens vanished into storm clouds, Ned turned to tasks. Rebuild Winterfell, stock granaries, mine dragonglass from Skagos veins rumored in old Nan tales. Arya volunteered first ship to Skagos, eager for adventure. He agreed when she swore practice reading charts. Weeks chilled into hardest winter start. White cloaks of frost-coated branches. One night, as Ned walked ramparts, horn blasts echoed beyond walls. Single mournful note from distant north. Scout atop Kingsroad Tower cried out. Riders, knights watch brothers with wildling refugees at heel, fleeing pale horrors. Ned ordered gates open. Fires lit. Lord Commander Jorah Mormont dismounted, beard iced. The broke fist marched south. Wall cannot hold alone. Behind him, ragged columns. Rangers hurt, wildlings clutching babes. Ned clasped Mormont's arm. You are home, he said. They convened war council as Aurora flickered green behind clouds. Omen perhaps of both life and sorcery. Plans formed for ringed fortifications across neck. For Raven networks to measure ice-white advance. For urgent request to Old Town's maesters to scour Valyrian texts. Jon Snow's absence cut, still north of wall with half-hand. Ned's voice cracked when asking. Mormont replied, Your boy lives, rallied wildlings under broken tower. King beyond night they call him, but he heads to Hardhome to ferry survivors. Relief mingled with fear. Ned vowed to find him. Word arrived. Catelyn safe with Seaworth, Stannis Onion Knight, sailing for White Harbor. Stannis accepted pact. So long as faith in Arlor allowed. Robb agreed. Gods may argue later. Tyrion's raven colder. King Joffrey refused, but Queen Margaery favored humanitarian truce. Compromise brewing. Then miracle clouded sky. Great wing-shaped sword. A dragon, ebony and gold, tasted snowflakes above Sea Dragon Point. Daenerys Targaryen's envoy landed. Unkempt knight bearing glass candle shining strange gleam. He spoke in Valyrian-laced common. Queen of Fire will meet council at Winterfell during first full moon of New Year. She brings heat to thaw dead, if North swears not to chain dragon souls again. Ned answered, "We burn not bind." Preparations accelerated. Winterfell struck anvil and loom night and day. Sansa organized feasts of salt pork and preserved berries. Bran, recovering, pored over maps with Maester, designing ramparts of ice brick reinforced by ash lime mortar. On Solstice Eve, snowfall eased, revealing sky of sharp stars. Fires ringed castle, torches reflecting in moat's glassy crust. Ned stood atop rebuilt gatehouse with Robb, Catelyn at his left, Sansa and Arya flanking. Horns signaled arrival, columns from riverlands, banners of fish and elk. Columns from Vale hawks, Dornish spearmen cloaked in bright scarves. East, beyond treeline, thundered reptilian roar. Air warmed. 3 dragons descended, wings eclipsing moon, landing outside walls gently enough to tremor stones. Daenerys approached astride the largest, silver-white hair whipping. She dismounted, cloak of black and red swirling. In her stride, Ned saw a same storm of purpose as in Robb, yet tempered by desert trials. She stopped before gate. Snow hissed to steam beneath dragon's exhale. Ned descended with Robb, stepped before assembly. Breath formed mist. Daenerys' breath none. Heat in her lungs. Winterfell welcomes Queen Daenerys Stormborn, mother of dragons, Ned announced. He knelt in snow-melted mud. Robb followed, then rows of lords across yard. Daenerys inclined head, eyes flicking across direwolf banners, crippled boy atop wall, 2 girls watching. Woman in Tully blue. She spoke softly yet carried. "I come not to conquer north, but to ally with living. Fire alone cannot defeat winter. Fire and ice together may." She extended hand. Ned rose, took it. Warmth bled into his frost-numb palm. An omen of balance, perhaps. Inside Great Hall, newly roofed with pine beams, they convened final council. Stannis arrived 2 days later, gaunt under red comet-embroidered cloak. Melisandre his shadow. Tyrion came representing King's Landing. Joffrey now overshadowed by Queen Regent Margaery guiding Boy King's decisions. Even Dorne's Prince Arianne attended, bearing sun spear banners. Vastest table fashioned from weirwood slice stood center, each seat equal height. Ned sat among them, neither king nor hand, but steward of alliance. Arguments surged, religions clashing, succession claims bared. Ned hammered gavel carved from Hearttree. Night's Watch ravens report undead host breaching wall within moons. Choose pride or survival. Gradually noise ebbed to grim unity. They drafted Pact of Winterfell. Every army sends half-strength north under combined command. Robb and Stannis joint marshals, Daenerys dragons air guard. Vale Knights aerial watchers on giant eagles, tamed by sky rookery, courtesy of wildling warg scouts. Lannister's promise grain, Tyrell's skin salves, Dorne venom-tipped spears, Ironborn ships coastal patrol. Maesters sworn to share knowledge freely. In exchange, after war, great moot to decide single or shared crown peacefully, under witness of gods, old and new. Kings, queens and lords signed with blood pricked onto woven direwolf dragon seal. Snow fell heavier, yet inside hall hearts burned bright. That eve campfires ringed Winterfell Valley, tents of many colors dotting white plain like stained glass shards in snow. Minstrels braved chill, playing songs of first men and children of forest. Dragons roosted on cliff, breaths rising hot pillars. Ned walked among soldiers. Free folk beside Southron knights. Blackfish trading stories with sand snakes. Sansa teaching Dornish cook to mull spiced wine, Arya sparring with Brienne under dragon glow. In quiet Godswood, Ned knelt before Hearttree. Catelyn joined, tangling fingers through his. "You guided realms to this," she whispered. "I merely kept Pack alive," he answered. Leaves shivered overhead, the wind still. He felt presence. Lyanna's laughter distant, Benjen's steady grin, old Rickard Stark's stern nod. Gratitude washed through. At dawn, horns blew 3 blasts. Watchmen's cry for White Walkers, but these horns from practice. Armies rehearsed march, dragons circling like omens of renewal. Ned climbed battlements. Amid swirl of banners he saw children's faces, Rickon chasing Snowhair, Bran testing freshly forged Valyrian steel braces, Arya whirling spear, Sansa directing wagon line. He saw Robb mount horse, Grey Wind by flank, vow to protect living no matter crown. He felt Catelyn's hand on shoulder, warm as hearth. Winter indeed had come, harsh and unforgiving. Yet for first time Ned believed realm might weather it, not through single blade nor lone crown, but through bond hammered in ice and tempered in fire. The bond of Pack. Clouds parted, pale sun spilled over snowy roofs, lighting shards of stained glass jammed into white. A promise that even in longest night, dawn breaks for those who stand side by side. And somewhere beyond ruined castles and frozen rivers, the others marched. They would find not scattered kingdoms, but a wall of wills, deery wolves and dragons waiting in the storm. Woven together by quiet northern lord who once thought honor his only shield, but learned to love, unity, and stubborn hope forge stronger steel. Ka. Wind scraped across Winterfell's battlements in a whistling lament, weaving through the newly set pine beams above the great hall and scattering flecks of rime that glittered like powdered diamond in ruddy torchlight. Beneath those beams, in a silence stippled by distant hammer blows from the forges, Eddard Stark stood at the highest window of the solar and watched the world breathe frost. The courtyard below, once so familiar in its rhythms, the clatter of hooves, the bark of kennel hounds, the smell of boiled oats, had grown into something vaster than any single seat of power. Now tents bearing the sigils of half a dozen crowns ringed the stone walls, and braziers burned in long rows, each one illuminating a shard of the Pact that had been sworn here. The red rose of High Garden beside the white sun spear of Sunspear, the crowned stag of Storm's End beside the rippling blue of the Trident, the pale ghost tree of the Cranagman and the silver falcon of the Vale, all of them tied now, however. In that hush before dawn, Ned felt the enormity of it settle on his shoulders, no longer as iron fetters, but as a mantle he had chosen. The night's frost clawed at his lungs each time he breathed, yet beneath the chill stirred something warmer, harder, a fierce certainty that the sacrifices behind him had not been for naught. He turned from the window, tugging his wolfskin cloak tighter, and descended the narrow spiral to the hall. At the hearth, Daenerys Targaryen knelt before a low brazier, her silver blonde hair spilling over a fur-lined mantle of black and crimson. She had chosen to keep her dragons outside the castle, roosting on a rocky promontory above the shattered remnants of the first keep. Yet their presence still tinged the air with faint heat and the metallic tang of ash. The queen rose as he entered, and Ned noted the small smile she gave, wary yet genuine, like the cautious easing of a blade from its sheath. "Lord Stark," she greeted him, her voice soft as new-fallen snow yet shot through with tempered iron. "You walk the walls wrapped in frost before the sun even thinks to rise." He inclined his head. "Old habits. The dawn patrols were once my quiet time for judging the state of Winterfell. Now that quiet has become a luxury, but I find I still crave it." "Then I'm so." She studied the fading embers. "My quiet was a desert night, long ago when the sands hissed beneath the moons, and nothing but the breathing of a single dragon kept me warm. Now my nights feel crowded." Ned chuckled, rubbing his gloved hands. "Crowded nights, crowded councils. Yet I fear we will wish for these crowds soon enough. Any word from the ravens?" "None towards you." Daenerys glanced at the sealed cases on the table. Sigils of Oldtown, Dorne, Gulltown mingled together. "Lord Tyrion writes that King's Landing has dispatched 2,000 wagons of grain under Lady Olenna's oversight. They should reach Moat Cailin within a moon if the roads hold. Prince Doran confirms a fleet of water casks and citrus leaving Sunspear, though the seas grow treacherous. And Samwell Tarly, your boy Joan's friend, sends news of quarried dragonglass being carted down the wall itself. Good news, Ned murmured. For once, it outweighs the ill. A shadow crossed her eyes. Only for the moment, Lord Stark. But storms move quickly in winter. She straightened. Shall we join the forge inspection? They walked together through the stone corridors lit by sputtering torches, their breath forming twin plumes in the cold. Past the training yard they reached the repurposed smithy. Sparks leapt in the gloom as blades were tested on anvils, steel warmed by hearth and cooled in barrels of brine. At the center stood Gendry Waters, newly raised Master Armorer under both direwolf and dragon banners. His thick arms glistened with sweat despite the chill, and his hammer rang in steady rhythm. He paused as they approached, nodding to Ned. "My lord, my queen." He wiped his brow with a soot-blackened forearm. "We've 400 spear tips cast in dragonglass this week, and 100 arrowheads besides. Not as many swords. The glass chip's too easy, but I've a method for layering it into a steel core, if Sir Davos ships bring more resin." Ned lifted one of the black arrowheads, its edges rippling like frozen flame. "They will bring what they can. How fare the lumber stores?" "Me." Gendry gestured to a pile of ashwood shafts. "Enough for another 10,000 arrows if the carpenters keep pace. But binding the glass takes time. Every head must be heated and quenched in resin, or it'll shatter." Daenerys traced a finger over a spear's obsidian blade. "We've stoked the smelters hotter with dragon fire, but the bellows strain. Could your hammersmiths be moved to the lower bailey, closer to Drogon's roost?" A grin flickered across Gendry's face. "Dragon's forges. I'd not refuse that heat." The men would shout, but they'd do it. He cleared his throat. "Your pardon, my lady." She only smiled. "Every man and woman will shout before this war is done, but we shall give them reason to shout in triumph." They left him to his work and crossed to the stable yard. Jon's direwolf ghost emerged from the kennels, red eyes glimmering, and padded beside Ned as if sensing his thoughts. Each night Ned dreamed of Jon walking through drifting snow, faced with a wall of darkness and a single flickering torch. Sometimes he feared that torch would gutter out long before they arrived. As they approached the gatehouse, Robb Stark strode toward them, gray cloak swirling around mail brightened by winter sunlight. His wound had healed enough that he walked with barely a limp, though every so often Ned saw him press the thigh. Gray Wind trotted behind, muzzle frosted. 50 riders from the neck returned, Robb said without preamble, the wind teasing hair across his brow. They report Bolton's host behind them. 2,000 marching down the King's Road. Ramsay claims he brings prisoners to Winterfell for questioning. Ned frowned. Prisoners or trophies? Robb gave a grim shake of his head. Hard to tell. He flays the truth thinner than most. Daenerys studied them both. If we are to trust this pact, each lord's house must answer to the council, even a lord as singular as the bastard of Bolton, especially him. Ned exhaled through clenched teeth. "I will meet Lord Bolton at the Dreadfort's Fieldstone Watchtower north of the Wolfswood. He arrives tomorrow at dawn. Better there than inside these walls." "I'll ride with you," Robb said. "And I," Daenerys added. "Dragons stand witness to every oath." Ned hesitated. 3 heads form House Targaryen's sigil, but 3 pointed blades are no more secure than one if the hilt is rotten. "Bolton will see your presence as threat." "Let him," she replied softly. "Fear can be a whetstone." Dawn arrived steel pale and windless. Frost sheeted every blade of grass upon the snow-coated field before the old watchtower. Snow muffled hoofbeats as Ned, Robb, and Daenerys approached the rough stone spire, a half-crumbled edifice older than Winterfell itself. Behind them rode a guard of Stark spears and Stormlanders under Sir Davos Seaworth's banner, many armed with newly tipped dragonglass hafts that caught the light like onyx. Above, unseen but felt as warmth pulsing through cloak and plate, Drogon and Viserion wheeled in ponderous circles, each wing beat stirring small avalanches from nearby slopes. Few steeds remained calm beneath such shadows. Those that did were all Northborn. Ramsay Bolton arrived fashionably late, his column winding from the forest, a snaking procession of banners depicting a flayed man, crimson on pink flapping listlessly in the chill. He led on a stallion black as shale, his sable cloak trimmed with snowy ermine. At his side rode Lord Roose Bolton, pale eyes unreadable beneath hood. Ramsay's grin appeared before his words. "My lords, my lady, what a gathering. Wolves, dragons, stags, oh my." He swung down, boots crunching frost. "These prisoners you asked for." He snapped his fingers. Men hauled 6 bound figures forward, still in damp ironborn leathers. One wore a soiled cloak of Winterfell gray. Theon Greyjoy lifted hollow eyes to Ned, lips cracked, cheeks sunken. "He begged for our mercy," Ramsay said with theatrical sorrow. "Yet I kept him breathing." He stroked Theon's hair, and the Ironborn flinched. "Tell Lord Stark thank you, Reek." Theon's mouth trembled. "Thank you, Lord, for mercy." Ned's gut twisted. Why is he maimed? Oh, minor discipline. He tried to free himself and slit a guard's throat. I couldn't allow such insolence. Daenerys' gaze sharpened. Behind her, Sir Barristan Selmy rested hand lightly on sword. "Lord Bolton, you were instructed to treat prisoners under guest right. Maiming voids that right." Ramsay's grin dimmed a fraction. "Ah, but we were outside Winterfell's gates. No guest right granted. I only safeguarded our alliance." Robb stepped forward, eyes ice. "Safeguarded now by kneeling. Swear oath to the pact and to this council. Your father already placed his seal. You, as heir, must pledge as well." Ramsay's gaze danced to Drogon's silhouette overhead. "If I must." He knelt in snow, graceless but kneeling. Robb drew his sword icebreaker, point downward. "Repeat after me. I, Ramsay of House Bolton, do swear. I, Ramsay of House Bolton, do swear to stand united with all the realms of men. To stand united with all the realms of men. Against the night and the dead beyond death. Against the night and the dead beyond death." A slight tremor in his voice. "And should I break this vow? And should I break this vow? May my flesh know the flayer's knife." Ramsay's pupils shrank. "May my flesh know the flayer's knife." Silence fell. Drogon's roar punctured it, booming from the clouds. Robb lifted his blade, sheathing it. He turned to Ned. "The oath is sworn." Ned nodded. "Then I ask one offering of goodwill. Release Theon Greyjoy into Maester's care." Roose Bolton spoke, voice cool as Cellarstone. "My son's ward remains asset, exchanging him risks." Daenerys cut in. "Risk is shared by all. But this realm cannot build trust if oaths are blood-inked on flayed hide." Roose arched a brow. "A poetic queen. Very well." He gestured, and men shoved Theon forward. Ned and Robb guided the crumbling man toward a healer's tent. The meeting concluded. Bolton banners melted into woods. Inside the tent, Maester Luwin gasped at his former charge's condition. Ragged ears, missing fingers, back striped with fresh scars. Theon could barely meet Ned's eyes. "I deserve what's come," he whispered. "You deserve judgment," Ned corrected, "but not torture. The North mates justice with clean steel." He clasped Theon's shoulder. "Heal. Then stand before the council. Confess. Make what amends you can in this war." Theon's answer was a choked nod. Winter deepened. The sun hovered low even at midday, smearing the horizon with a coppery light that cast long, haunting shadows over the snowscape. Scouts reported whites breaching small wildling hamlets 2 leagues south of the wall. Each day, new refugees shivered into Winterfell. Ragged free folk, maimed rangers, small folk from abandoned northern villages, wide-eyed at dragons roosting above crackling braziers. In the lower courtyard, Jon's younger brothers trained with Crannog spears. Bran watching from a specially built chariot seat harnessed to Hodor's back. Arya sparred daily with Brienne, each bout ringing steel against steel until sweat steamed off armor. Sansa organized the refugee children into hearthsong lessons and weaving circles, turning trauma into community fabric. Ned walked among these tasks, silent but observing, and felt a strange mixture of gratitude and dread. Then, one bitter evening, as twilight bled indigo into the sky, a single horn call rolled from the King's Road watchtower, followed by another, and a third, the signal for returning rangers. Ned, Robb, and Daenerys hurried onto the rampart as a small ragged column emerged through drifting snowdrifts. Night's Watch survivors bearing stretchers, free folk warriors limping beside them, and at their center, a tall, lean figure with a great white wolf at his heel. Jon Snow's hair was iced in white strands, his cloak rent and patched with fur and black silk. He led a line of children bundled in furs, guiding them toward the gates. Ned's heartbeat thundered. He descended the stairs 2 at a time, Robb beside him, ignoring the protests of guards to wait until the gate closed. They met Jon as he cleared the threshold. For a moment, neither father nor son spoke. Jon's face, gaunt, eyes rimmed red with exhaustion, broke into a smile equal parts relief and astonishment. Ned clasped him, fierce, and whispered, "You have outpaced every raven." Jon's voice cracked, then let the raven rest. He sagged, and Ned felt the tremor in his limbs. They half carried him to the keep. Jon spoke quickly, voice hoarse. "The wall is broken in 3 places. The Night's Watch holds Eastwatch barely. Castle Black's gate is sealed in ice. The dead march with giants of dusted bone. The wall's magic fades." Thus, Daenerys approached, Drogon's hot breath stirring her braids. She laid a hand on Jon's forearm. "Your warning reached us. My dragons are yours in this fight." Their eyes met, startling green and deep gray, and something silent passed between them, acknowledgement of a burden shared. Jon nodded, grateful yet troubled. "There is more. The Night King rides a creature of ice. A dragon taken from beyond the Frostfangs, wings of crystal, breath colder than death." He swallowed. "Dragonglass wounds him, but does not finish the deed." A hush fell over the courtyard. Men who had fought in 50 wars, lords hardened by politics, women who knew childbed peril, all staring at him now as though a myth walking. Ned exhaled steadily. "Then we must find new weapons. Fire with ice at its heart." The War Council reconvened the next day beneath the main hall's greenish glass skylights. A map of the north and the wall lay stretched across the table, chalk lines marking each stronghold, each gap. Jon stood opposite Daenerys, his bandaged arm resting on the edge. Tyrion Lannister, cheeks hollow from the journey north, sat between them scribbling notes, while Stannis Baratheon observed in tight-lipped stillness, Melisandre shadowing him like a living ember. Ned addressed them all. "We must close the breaches. 3 rifts gape in the wall. The Sentinel's Arch, Icemark Crag, and the Old Skirling Pass. If the dead sweep south from all of them, no number of men can stem the tide." He pointed. "We will divide our forces. Stannis, your disciplined ranks will hold Sentinel's Arch, with Vale Eyrie archers on the cliffs above, dropping dragonglass-tipped bolts. Robb, you and I take Icemark Crag with the northern levies and free folk allies. Daenerys and Jon will ride for Skirling Pass with the dragons, striking the White Walker's vanguard before it gains foothold." "Moinchiao." Tyrion tapped quill. "And the Night King?" Jon inhaled. "He'll be drawn to dragonfire. If he rides his ice dragon, we must lure him to Skirling where terrain favors flight, not foot. Once he dismounts to command his ranks, slay the beast first, then cut him off from his army." Daenerys met his gaze. "Drogon and I will engage. You and Viserion flank. Rhaegal circles high, strafing runs, then retreat before their javelins." "Then..." Tyrion frowned. "You make it sound like jousting with lance tips dipped in flame. The Night King does not joust, he hunts." Daenerys' lips pressed to a hard line. "Then we hunt as well." Stannis shifted. "Melisandre says the Lord of Light favors such a strike. 3 heads in flight, 3 walls of fire." His red priestess inclined her head, copper hair catching hearth glow. Tyrion muttered, "Let us hope your fire chooses flesh to burn more carefully this time." They argued over rows of supply numbers, the distance wagons could traverse in blizzard, the amount of fodder for horses. Sansa, seated near the rear, quietly passed notes to stewards instructing them to double broth rations for marchers. Samwell Tarly, paunch still present despite the lean road, produced parchments describing obsidian runes discovered at the Fist of the First Men. Carved into stones with 7-pointed star configurations, he explained, voice trembling with excitement. An armorer might embed them into blades to disrupt the walker's necromancy. Gendry called for the largest of the stones. Maesters argued runic semantics. Ned finally slammed his palm on the table. Enough. We launch within 9 days. Every forge will burn round the clock. Every raven will carry muster summons. Questions? Silence. Then Stannis. There is one. His unflinching gaze fixed upon Jon, but words addressed Daenerys. You will fly with bastard blood unsanctioned by crown. If he falls, your dragons may turn wild. Jon Snow lords more honor than most crowned men I've met, she said. I trust him with my life and my dragons. Stannis' mouth flattened. Very well. May your trust burn like your fire. He stalked out, Melisandre's scarlet skirts swirling behind. In the weeks that followed, Winterfell surged like a living forge. The air rang with hammer blows even at midnight, as blades, arrowheads, and spear tips were quenched in mixtures of resin and dragon flame. The smell of pitch and pine tar mingled with the faint sulfuric tang exhaled by Drogon when he lent his breath to the smelter pits. Ned roamed the camps each dusk, strengthening the fragile lattice of alliances with a word here, a steadying hand there. He witnessed Sir Davos teaching knotcraft to free folk raiders who had never tied a naval hitch. He saw Dornish spearmen drilling shoulder to shoulder with Karstark halberdiers, each exchanging curses and laughter in languages the other barely grasped. He found Tyrion in a small pavilion laden with scrolls, mapping logistical webs for supply wagons. Found Samwell near the library tower, arguing politely with an archmaester about rune translation. Found Theon Greyjoy slowly regaining voice, instructing Northmen how to spot ironborn longship tactics on an icy coast. One night, while the aurora shimmered pale green over the courtyard, Arya slipped into Ned's solar, clothes smeared with soot. Father, she whispered, panting from haste. Brienne and I think an assassin has slipped inside Bolton's camp cut. A silent sister's robes, but she moves wrong. Now, Ned stood. Show me. They shadowed through the narrow passage above the great hall, coming to a slitted window overlooking the guest yard. There Ramsay's men quartered, fires low, guards half asleep. A figure in gray robes knelt near a supply crate, slender hands working a vial into the soup kettle. Brienne, towering, crept behind with 2 Stark guards. The figure whirled at Brienne's bark, revealing pale face framed by hood. No silent sister but a Tyrell made by dress, though the sigils had been scraped away. In her hand glimmered a glass vial of swirling black liquid. Brienne ceased her wrist. The vial fell and hissed where it shattered, frost sizzling around it. Shadow binding, muttered Arya. Same substance Melisandre uses. They hustled the assassin inside. Under torchlight, Ned demanded truth. She bore a scar over one brow, eyes wild yet resolute. For the Queen of Thorns, she spat, crying that Cersei and Margaery both sought to break this pact by any means. Ned grimaced. Secrets and knives would chase them until Last Walker fell. He ordered her confined but unharmed. We will not give our enemies proof that this alliance devours itself. Later that night, Daenerys confessed she'd faced similar treachery on her march through Slaver's Bay. There will be others, she said, voice low by the Godswood Pond. Only shared purpose keeps us from killing one another. Ned dipped gloved fingers into the icy water, watching ripples freeze into crystal whorls. Shared purpose, forged day by day like steel. Break it once, the blade shatters. He looked at her. Let us see it tempered in the fires of this war. Her gaze clung to his, respect, perhaps gratitude, or simply the weight of responsibility they both bore. She said, "A sword can break, but steel reforged is stronger." 6 days before departure, a raven arrived bearing crimson ribbon, sign of King's Landing. Tyrion unrolled the parchment before the council. To Lord Eddard Stark, Regent of the Northern Pact. The crown acknowledges the threat named White Walkers and pledges 8,000 men under Sir Adam Marbrand and Sir Loras Tyrell. The king further requests that in return for this aid, Queen's Crown Holdfast and surrounding lands be ceded to the Faith Militant for sanctuary. Additionally, the crown asks that Prince Tommen, heir to the throne, be entrusted to the North's protection until war's conclusion, ensuring unity of realm. Signed, Queen Regent Margaery of House Tyrell, Protector of the Realm. Guided by the hand of the king, Lord Tyrion of House Lannister. Murmurs rippled through the room. Ned read it twice. They intend to send the boy here. Tyrion cleared his throat. An idea partly my own. Joffrey remains volatile. Tommen's presence may temper Cersei's games and tie the crown's fate to ours. But it places undue burden on you. Nymeria Hurl. Robb frowned. A hostage. A guest, Tyrion corrected quietly. One I loved once, before politics devoured simple affection. Daenerys looked to Ned. Acceptance cements alliance. Refusal gives Cersei cause to claim abandonment. Ned waited. The boy would need safety. Winterfell was safe. So long as the dead did not breach the wall. He saw Sansa's eyes widen, memories of King's Landing still raw. Yet, she spoke first. My lord, Tommen is innocent of his brother's crimes. If we refuse him, Cersei may refuse her men, and more innocents die. Ned's jaw clenched. We accept, with conditions. Tommen travels under full guard. The crown dispatches half its promised men at once, the remainder upon his safe arrival. Queen's Crown will be sanctuary for families displaced. He signed the reply that night. Departure day dawned blue as tempered steel. The banners of a dozen houses fluttered in formation outside Winterfell's gates, their colors sharp against the white horizon. Foot soldiers stamped frost-numbed toes. Horses snorted plumes. Wagons creaked under dragonglass crates. Across the ridge, Drogon arched his wings, scattering snow in avalanches down the slope. Viserion and Rhaegal crouched behind him, their scales glimmering green gold and pale ivory. Ned addressed the gathered host from atop the ancient gatehouse. You march not for crown nor conquest, but for the living. You march for hearths yet unlit, songs yet unsung. His voice carried on the crystalline air. Fight with the knowledge that beside you stands a shieldmate of every land beneath the seven. And know that when this night ends, the dawn will remember your names. He raised his sword, 100 banners lifted. A thunder of cheers rolled across the field. Robb rode at the head of the central column, Grey Wind pacing. Jon and Daenerys stood between Drogon's shoulders, their cloaks rippling as the dragon beat skyward. Ned watched them ascend, 2 figures dwarfed by wings that spanned half a league in a single sweep. His heart squeezed with pride and apprehension both. When the last wagon rolled out, Sansa grasped Ned's hand by the gate. Come back, she whispered. This time, come back. He kissed her brow, feeling the prophecy of her words settle like snow upon him. I will. Arya clasped him next, pressing a small dagger into his palm. Her secret backup blade, Valyrian steel needle thin. For loose knots, she said. He chuckled, ruffled her short hair, and slipped it into his belt. Catelyn stood beside the weirwood, red leaves fluttering around her. They embraced, long and quiet. I thought I'd lost you twice, she murmured. I cannot endure a third. You won't have to. He pressed his lips to her forehead, breathing in the scent of snow and fire smoke, tangled with river mint. Then he swung into the saddle of a shaggy Roundsey and spurred after the departing host. The march north felt like threading a needle through infinity. Day after day, the columns moved between black spruce walls laden with snow, the road little more than a ribbon of trampled ice. Wolves howled from distant ridges, oddly muted by the hush of an oncoming storm. Each dawn the sky turned paler, as if the world conspired to parch itself of color. At night, they camped in tight perimeters, dragging sledges of pine into pits where Gendry Smith set portable forges blazing, softening dragon glass to set into spear tangs on the move. Jon flew overhead, descending each dusk to relay scouting reports. The dead gathered beyond the shivering forest, he said, drawn to Skirling Pass in numbers that blotted the snow. Their ice dragon's shriek echoed through the peaks like cracking glass. Robb listened, grim. If they concentrate there, our flanks might slip south unseen. Unless it's a feint, Jon countered. The Night King knows we know. Ned considered. We split our own feint. Stannis holds Sentinel. Robb takes Icemark. If either flank buckles, dragons reinforce. Jon, you and Daenerys choose targets of opportunity. Keep them guessing until we know the Night King's hand. The last leg brought them to Icemark Crag, a jagged crown of basalt cliffs where the wall's ruin tumbled into a glacial ravine. Ned surveyed the breach. A maw of collapsed ice 50 feet high, littered with blue shards glowing faintly even in daylight. The wind there howled through the gap with the voice of every ghost the wall had ever imprisoned. He ordered palisades erected, trenches dug, stakes of dragon glass planted like teeth. Free folk archers scaled the cliff faces, nailing ropes for quick ascent. Maester Vyman's ravens perched along the parapets, ready for flight. On the fourth sunrise, the sky bruised violet. Scouts reported skeletal outriders 3 leagues out. Ned conferred with Robb, cloaks whipping in the rising gale. Archers ready. Reserves hold. Signal when they breach the stakes. He clasped his son's arm. Whatever comes, we stand, Robb finished, eyes reflecting the dawn's blade. They parted, Robb to the right flank, Ned to the left. Snow began to fall, thick and silent. A hush settled, broken only by distant wing beats, the dragons taking their positions high above. Ned's breath clouded before him. He flexed fingers inside bare fur gloves. From the white gloom emerged the vanguard, lank figures clad in frost-clotted rags, empty sockets luminous with cold fire. Their limbs jerked like marionettes as they advanced, dragging swords crusted in rime. Behind them advanced shapes more monstrous, giants of forest bone sheathed in ice, each step cracking the frozen crust. Woven things stitched from shadow and splinter, a herd of antlered dead whose tines scraped the low sky. Ned felt time dilate. He raised his sword, the edge lined with obsidian runes Samwell had deciphered, and roared, "Northmen!" Banners dipped, direwolf, Gloverbear, Umbergiant. Arrows loosed in black storm, each arrowhead flared on impact as dragonglass met necrotic flesh, sending whites crumbling. The front rank collided with stakes, impaling themselves willingly to create bridges for those following. Wildlings hurled jars of pitch. The black flame of dragon-forged oil burst across the breach, lighting dead bones. But they pressed on, inexorable. Then came the first White Walker. Tall, armored in plates of mist steel, eyes burning sapphire. It strode through the pitch fire untouched, frost seething across the flames, dousing them. Temperature plummeted. Ned's beard stiffened with ice. He met it halfway, his rune-bladed sword raised. Their weapons clashed, steel screaming, sparks showering the snow. It thrust spear swift as thought. He parried, felt the jarring chill of impact. Again and again they struck, until he saw a crack shimmer across the walker's spear where the runes had kissed it. He pivoted, drove the sword point into that hairline fracture. The obsidian runes glowed icy blue, then blinding white. The walker shattered like glass, shards whipping away on the wind. A thunderous cheer rose from Northman throats. Yet beyond, hundreds more advanced. Ned's arms shook, but he raised his sword anew. High overhead, a roar rent the firmament. Drogon swept down, a river of black wings and furnace heat, unleashing a torrent of flame. Behind him, Viserion's gold fire braided with Drogon's red, painting the storm clouds amber. The dead scorched, ice giants melting into steaming heaps. For a heartbeat, victory trembled within reach. Then a sound like the shattering of the world erupted. An agonized, crystalline shriek. A shape swooped out of the storm front, vaster than Drogon. Its wings translucent blue, its eyes shards of night. The ice dragon dove, exhaling a storm of absolute cold. Frost hammered Drogon's flank. Flame sputtered to steam. The great black dragon faltered, scales crackling with rime. On its back rode the Night King, tall, motionless, as if carved of the same ice that fueled his mount. In one gauntlet he carried a spear of black crystal, longer than any lance. He hurled it with preternatural grace. It spun through the air, trailing frost, aimed at Daenerys. Jon shouted, veering Viserion to intercept. The spear struck Viserion's right wing, punching clean through scale and sinew. Viserion reeled, shrieking thunderously, but still deflected enough to save Drogon. The crystal lance shattered in the snow behind Ned, exploding in a swirl of razored ice that shredded whites and humans alike. Viserion limped away, blood and frost weeping from the torn membrane. Jon clung to his harness, shouting to Daenerys, "Go! Draw him off!" Drogon bellowed, turning his burning maw toward the Night King's dragon. Two titans crashed amid swirling blizzard, fire meeting rime, steam boiling sky. Lightning crackled between them, stark branches of white, as if gods hammered steel upon an anvil of wind. Ned forced his gaze back to the ground fight. Robb's line staggered under new assaults, ice trolls smashing trenches, whites swarming over fallen. Ned fought to reach him, but he slipped on black ice seized over blood. An umber banner tumbled. Gray wind lunged out of the fray, fangs tearing dead flesh, then vanished into waves of enemies. Across the breach, Jon dismounted Viserion onto a rocky ledge, waving off Maester Pylos healers. He drew Longclaw, its Valyrian steel glimmering dull gray in the dim light. He sprinted toward the Night King, leaping from boulder to ice slab, cutting down whites that stumbled in his path. Daenerys swooped lower, saving walkers with Drogon's claws to clear Jon's way. Ned felt slow, anchored by years, by fatherhood's weight, but he could not let his son face darkness alone. He shouted for the reserve phalanx, plunging back into melee. Dragonglass spears met polished ice. The air rang with brittle jolts. Somewhere a horn sounded, a Karstark call, rallying left flank, but the note ended abruptly, a strangled warble of brass as if frozen mid-breath. The Night King guided his mount into a spiral above Jon. Shards of hoarfrost snapped off its wings, raining needle-sharp pellets. Jon lunged, slicing the legs of a frosted elk white, vaulting slippery stones until he stood atop a promontory half-ruined by dragonfire. The Night King dismounted, icy talons leaving frozen footprints that cracked the rock. He drew a sword thin as winter moonlight. Jon advanced, their blades crossing, sparks and frost swirling around them like dancing fireflies. Ned could not reach them. Whites hemmed him, white walkers flanking his path. He fought like a man possessed, every stroke driven by visceral love, poised on the cusp of loss. Dragonglass split walker armor, his ruined blade cleaving them in cobalt shards. Yet more filled the gaps. Above, dragons clashed in deafening chaos. Drogon's flames rebounding from the ice dragon's breath, hiss of steam turning day to fog. Viserion, trailing smoke, flanked, unleashing gold-white fire against the Night King's beast's tail. Frost cracked, blue scales shattered. Jon feinted. Night King parried with inhuman reflex, riposting a slash that nicked Jon's cheek and sheathed half his face in instant rime. Jon recovered, spinning Longclaw high, bringing it down with two-handed blow. Valyrian steel met ice blade. A ringing note, like a church bell of crystal, reverberated across the crag, and both blades shattered, shards exploding outward. In that stunned moment, Jon staggered back, weaponless. The Night King raised his hand. Snow rose in a cyclone. Dead men stirred at his call. Ned felt the tug, the inexorable pull of loss. Not again, not my son. From the sky, a howl split blizzard. A direwolf's cry magnified until it filled the clouds. Gray wind, fur caked in gore, leapt from a broken rampart, crashing onto the Night King's back, fangs gnashing. Simultaneously, Arya's lithe form emerged from swirling snow behind the creature. Needle replaced by the dagger she had given Ned. Valyrian steel glinting. She dove, blade aimed at the Night King's exposed flank. Time slowed. The Ice Monarch wheeled, one gauntleted hand seizing Grey Wind's scruff, the other whipping icy dagger toward Arya's throat. Ned's scream died in his chest. Yet as that crystalline blade thrust forward, Arya flipped mid-air, just as she had trained, and let it pass beneath her. She rolled on the Night King's arm, pivoting over Grey Wind's heaving flank, and plunged the dagger into the exact spot Jon shattered. Blade had struck moments before. The fracture-lined spider webbed across the Night King's chest. The dagger sank to the hilt. Frost exploded outward, white fire, then black. The Night King's eyes flared incandescent before shattering like brittle glass. A peal of unnatural sound rippled across the valley. The death of silence itself. Every White Walker splintered where they stood. Whites collapsed, strings severed, bodies inert. The ice dragon shrieked once, spiraling into a death roll, its translucent wings disintegrating as it crashed beyond the gorge in an eruption of frozen dust and flame. A hush unfurled across the battlefield. Breath fogged above corpses. Human, giant, beast. Snowflakes drifted without malice now, merely winter's quiet sigh. Ned, chest heaving, surveyed the devastation. Fires guttered in trenches, smoke curling into pale sky. In the center stood Arya, winded, clothes torn, blade still clutched. Jon rose beside her, laid a gloved hand on her shoulder. Grey Wind limped to Robb, muzzle bloody but tail wagging weakly. Daenerys guided Drogon lower, landing in a swirl of steam. As her boots touched ground, her knees buckled. She steadied herself on Jon's arm. Their eyes met. No words, only relief raw as bone. Ned reached them, snow crunching underfoot, and gathered Arya into his arms. She trembled. Whether from cold or adrenaline he could not tell. "Little wolf," he whispered. "You carried the pack." She pulled back enough to grin, though tears froze at her lashes. "Had to finish my dance." Her voice cracked. Cheering rose, first pockets, then swelling waves. Stannis' distant horns answered from Sentinel. Dragon riders circled overhead, signaling other fronts had prevailed. The tide of the dead had broken. Robb approached, blood caked across face. Grey Wind pressed to his leg. He rested forehead against Ned's. "We lived," he murmured, voice hoarse with disbelief. "By the gods, we lived." Jon turned to the field, scanning for survivors. So many didn't. He stepped to Viserion, stroking the wounded wing. Daenerys joined him, murmuring Valyrian words of comfort. Drogon nudged his brother gently. Steam rose from fresh sutures, Maester Pylos already stitched with wildling gut string. Ned clasped Jon's shoulder. "We honor them, and we endure." Snowflakes whispered around them, settling on heaps of shattered ice, on broken banners, on steel runes still glowing faintly. In the silence, they heard a distant horn. 3 blasts carried by the gentlest breeze. The watchman's call for victory. Yet Ned knew this dawn marked a beginning, not an end. The realm remained fractured, crowns still contested, wounds deep. But for the first time in living memory, all the living had stood together against death, and won. That truth would seed all future conversations of rule, of justice, of unity. He lifted his eyes to the mountains, now shedding the gloom of unnatural clouds to reveal cliffs tinted rose gold. The first warm line of sun slid over the horizon, painting the snowfields in pastel fire. Ned thought of Sansa, of Catelyn, of Bran and Rickon waiting behind sturdy walls now safe. He thought of the south, of a little boy king making his way to Winterfell surrounded by men sworn to protect him regardless of politics. He thought of every hearth yet unlit that might now burn brightly again. He sheathed his rune blade. "Come," he said to those gathered. "We have bodies to burn, wounds to mend, walls to rebuild, and a realm to plant in this new earth." They turned southward together, dragons lifting overhead in guardianship, deerwolves padding through dawn-hushed snow, a tapestry of banners fluttering against the newborn light. And as Eddard Stark took his first step along the ravaged path, he felt the weight of the North upon his shoulders, but also the warmth of every hand that steadied it beside him. For the pack endured, and with sunrise breaking across ice-shattered ground, He believed. At last, that spring would come.